Hey guys, tonight we're doing something intense. You're about to wake up in a Stone Age cave, like actual Paleolithic times, before writing, before Wi-Fi, before anyone knew what a toothbrush was. We're talking spears, mammoths, fire starting with rocks, and neighbours who will either share meat with you or club you over the head. There are no guarantees here. Honestly, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, what city are you in, and what time are you watching this? I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Oh, you're cold. No, like bone deep, skin tightening, teeth chattering, cold. That's your first thought. Then the second one hits you like a rock to the head. This is not your bedroom. There's no mattress, no weighted blanket, no ambient noise from your phone playing Gentle Rainstorm in a bamboo forest. There's just damp stone beneath you, shadows flickering across a jagged ceiling, and the unmistakable nose-wrinkling scent of something alive or recently dead. You sit up too fast and instantly regret it. Your head clocks a low-hanging chunk of limestone, and for a few stunned seconds, all you can hear is the faint echo of your own groan bouncing around the cavern. Your breath is visible in the air. That's not good. That's prehistoric level not good. You squint into the darkness. The only light is a grey, ghostly glow filtering in from a jagged crack in the cave wall, just wide enough to suggest morning, or at least a time of day that isn't full-on nightmare pitch black. The floor beneath you is rough and scattered with bits of straw, bone fragments, and something that looks suspiciously like an ancient animal pelt. No sign of your phone, your clothes, or anything that proves you ever lived in the 21st century. Also, you're barefoot. Of course you are. You shuffle upright, trying not to think about what might be lurking in the shadows. Every sound seems amplified. The distant drip of water, the scuttle of something small and furry, your own ragged breathing. You're wrapped in a hide of some kind, stiff patchy fur that smells like it once belonged to something bigger than you, and probably meaner. And honestly, you're not wearing much else. Think loincloth chic. You make your way toward the light, hugging your arms around your body to keep from freezing into a modern art installation titled Doomed Time Traveller. As you near the entrance, the smell shifts. Fresh air. Pine. Smoke? Yeah, just a trace of it. That could be a good sign or a very, very bad one. Outside, the world unfolds like a painting that forgot to finish rendering. Massive conifers stretch into a misty sky, their tips disappearing into fog. Snow dusts the ground in uneven patches. In the distance, a mountain rises like a beast hunched under the clouds. You're definitely not anywhere you recognise. And judging by the tracks crisscrossing the snow, you're also not alone. Your stomach growls. Of course it does. The last thing you ate was probably sushi or cereal, and now your options are... yeah, there's no 7-Eleven nearby. You spot a few dried berries nestled in a stone bowl near the cave's edge, and honestly, you don't ask questions, you just eat them. They're sour, seedy, and questionable, but you're desperate. Now that the panic is settling into a low, throbbing hum, you start piecing things together. The rock walls behind you are etched with markings, stick-figure animals, spear shapes, and what might be human hands pressed into red pigment. It's real. You're in a Stone Age cave, likely tens of thousands of years before your time. You're breathing air no human from your world has breathed. And your Wi-Fi password is completely useless here. As you turn back into the cave, you start noticing details you missed earlier. The bones near your makeshift bed? They're shaped, deliberately broken and sharpened. Tools, primitive knives. There's a pile of stones stacked in a way that suggests a fire pit. No fire though, just cold ash and a few burned out logs. And that's when it really hits you. If this is going to be more than a very short, very dramatic one-way trip into prehistory, you'll need fire, shelter, food, maybe even allies. The idea of meeting someone, some Stone Age someone, is both terrifying and weirdly comforting. At least you'd know how badly you're messing up the survival checklist. Suddenly, a sound breaks the stillness. Low, guttural, close. Something growls. Your body moves before your brain does. Straight back against the wall, grabbing the longest bone fragment you can find. It's not a weapon. It's a desperate idea dressed as courage. The growl comes again, and now you see the movement. A shape just beyond the cave mouth, low to the ground. sleek and furred, not a bear, not a wolf, hyena. Yeah, you remember those things from documentaries? Only this one's bigger, meaner looking, with eyes like black marbles and a head that looks engineered to crush bones like popcorn. It sniffs the air. You try not to breathe. Too late. It makes eye contact. Then a second shape appears beside it, and another. You think about making a run for it, into the forest, into the unknown. But the icy wind tells you wouldn't last an hour out there. And besides, the hyenas aren't charging in. They're watching, curious, maybe deciding whether you're prey or competition, or just confused by the fact that your scent includes traces of shampoo and hand sanitizer. Eventually, they move on. Bored or unsure, their shadows vanish into the morning fog, leaving you pressed against cold stone, heart hammering, every muscle taut. Welcome to the Stone Age. It's brutal, it's beautiful. And if you're going to make it through even one day, you better start learning fast. You're still pressed against the wall when your breath finally slows. The hyenas are gone, or at least they've slinked far enough away for your brain to stop screaming at you to freeze. And now the real panic sets in. Not the sudden kind that hits when something's about to chew your leg off, but the slow dawning existential kind. You're alone. It's cold. You have no tools, no plate, and the only thing that stands between you and the long, merciless Stone Age is your very modern, very fragile brain. The first priority, fire. Not because it's cozy, or because it makes you feel less like a lost idiot from the future, but because your fingers are stiffening. Your breath's a visible fog, and your toes feel like they're one snowflake away from snapping off like brittle twigs. Also, let's be honest, fire equals hope, and maybe a slightly better chance of not becoming night food for something with too many teeth. You kneel beside the old fire pit. The ashes are cold but not ancient. That's something. Someone was here, maybe yesterday, maybe a week ago. But they had fire, and that means it's possible. You remember watching a video once, some guy in cargo shorts striking flint together and blowing on kindling like he was summoning a tiny dragon. You remember thinking it looked easy. You were wrong. You dig through the stones piled nearby and find two that might qualify as flint. Sharp-edged, greyish, and just jagged enough to look promising. You strike them together. Nothing. You strike them again. And again, you sit there, hunched and miserable for what feels like hours. Your hands cramp. Your stomach growls. Your inner voice becomes a sarcastic commentator. And here we see the modern human attempting to recreate a skill his ancestors mastered 40,000 years ago, failing spectacularly. Eventually, after so much scraping and grunting and swearing that the cave probably has a new echo, you manage a spark. It lands on a shred of dried bark you found tucked under a log. You freeze. You breathe, slow and steady, then blow, just a little. The spark dies. You want to scream. But something inside you clicks. Not logic, not instinct. Just stubborn, irrational refusal to die this early in the story. You try again. A spark, a wisp of smoke, then, unbelievably, a flicker. You keep blowing, shielding it with your hands. The flame grows. Licking the edges of the bark, you pile on twigs slowly, like you're feeding a baby tiger with serious anger issues. And then, there it is, fire. Cool, living, popping, flickering fire. You made this. You, the guy who once burned microwave popcorn and set off a dorm fire alarm. Warmth seeps into your fingers. The cave glows, shadows dancing up the walls like ancient spirits doing a victory lap. You sit back, dazed. For the first time since waking up, you feel the tiniest pinprick of control. Now that your brain isn't focused on not freezing to death, you start thinking more practically. What do you need to survive here? Food, obviously. Water. Maybe a better weapon than a sharpened bone that smells like regret. You check the cave more carefully now. In the far corner, behind a boulder, you find what looks like a stash, a pile of stones arranged too neatly to be random. Inside you find bones, some with tool marks, bits of dried meat, and a few stone blades. Jackpot. Either you have a roommate who hasn't returned yet, or someone died here and left their prehistoric starter kit behind. You examine one of the blades. It's crude but effective. Flint or obsidian, chipped into a sharp edge and wrapped at the base with sinew and bark strips to form a handle. Holding it makes you feel less like a tourist and more like a participant. A very underqualified, slightly terrified participant. You take stock. You've got fire, a basic knife, some scraps of meat that you're trying not to overthink. Now you need water. You remember the dripping sound from earlier, somewhere deeper in the cave, grabbing a stick for support and, let's face it, emotional comfort. You edge deeper into the darkness. The air cools again. Your fire fades behind you. You move slowly, feet slipping on damp stone. After about 20 steps, you find the source, a trickle of water seeping through a crack in the wall, collecting in a small depression in the floor. It's clear, cold. You dip your fingers in and taste it. Surprisingly clean. You fill a cracked piece of bark and carry it back like it's liquid gold. Back at your fire, you sip water and chew on a piece of jerky so tough it might actually be bark wearing a meat costume. Either way, your stomach doesn't complain. You sit warming your feet and take in your surroundings. It's all stone and shadow, but you notice something else now. Art. Faint outlines on the walls, lines and swirls and stick figures with spears, mammoths, deer. What might be the sun? This cave isn't just shelter. It's a story. One figure catches your eye. A human, or something close, standing tall beside a fire, arms raised. Around it, animals dance in a circle. It could be a ritual, a celebration, or maybe someone just really loved deer. You feel a weird sense of kinship. Someone else, long ago, sat in this very cave, felt the same cold, the same hunger, the same awe. You're not the first. That's oddly comforting. The weird part? You're starting to feel not exactly at home, but less like you're dreaming. The cold is real. The hunger is real. The smoke in your eyes and the ache in your shoulders, real. You're in the Stone Age, and if you're not careful, you're going to stay here forever, either as a success story or as someone's fossilized snack. As the fire crackles and the day begins to fade outside, you make a plan, or at least a desperate checklist. In the morning, you'll try to find more food, maybe scout the area, and, if the universe is feeling generous, find another human, preferably one that doesn't try to bash your skull in on sight. But for now, you wrap the fur tighter around your shoulders and lie back on the stone. The fire pops beside you. The wind howls outside, and somewhere not far away, something howls back. Sleep, if it comes, won't be restful, but it might be enough to keep you alive for one more day. Morning doesn't so much arrive as it creeps in like a cautious animal. Pale light filters through the mouth of the cave, cold and colourless, and you're awake before you want to be. Your neck aches. Your back feels like it lost a wrestling match with a boulder. The fur wrap has slid halfway off during the night, and now one leg is colder than vengeance. But you're alive. That alone feels like an accomplishment. The fire's died down to a few stubborn embers. You poke it with a stick, nurse it back with some twigs, and get it to crackle again. Just enough to reheat your fingers and remind yourself that yes, you still possess the barest scraps of civilization. Your stomach grumbles like it's trying to chew through your own spine, so you gnaw on another piece of prehistoric jerky and vow that today you're going to find something fresher, less bone dry, less suspiciously squirrel flavoured. You take inventory, flint knife, check. Fire-starting rocks, clutched in a fur pouch you made out of something's former ear. Water, half-full bark bowl, still cold. You packet it all, wrap yourself tightly, and step out of the cave like someone pretending they know what they're doing. Outside the air bites your cheeks and fills your lungs with a clarity that almost hurts. The snow has melted a little around the rocks, revealing patches of dirt and what might be edible roots, if you can figure out how to tell the snacky ones from the deadly ones. Your first real foraging attempt is clumsy at best. You dig with your hands and the edge of your knife, pulling up wiry strands of something vaguely carrot-like. You stare at it, unsure. It's either food or it's poison. There's no barcode, no label, just your very modern, very untrained guess. You take a bite. It's bitter and earthy, but you're not immediately vomiting, so you count that as a win. Next up, you try rocks. Not to eat, though that's starting to feel like an option, but to make better tools. You remember from some long ago museum trip that early humans didn't just hit rocks together randomly. There was a technique, a method. You find a flat stone and begin to chip away at it with a harder one, squinting to see if you're shaping a blade or just wasting your time. It's like trying to sculpt with a blindfold on, and a deadline that says, or else you starve. Hours pass. Maybe. Time doesn't behave the same here. No clocks, no phones, just the position of the sun and your growing hunger. Eventually you manage something that could pass for a scraper or a crude axe head. Jagged, uneven, but better than nothing. You tie it to a stick with sinew from an old bone, proud of your new creation until it immediately falls apart. You try again and again. Eventually the tool holds together. Barely. It's not pretty, but it's yours. Suddenly you hear movement, branches rustling. You freeze, crouching low behind a tree. There it is. A small animal, maybe a hare, nose twitching, completely unaware that a confused time traveller is trying to channel their inner hunter-gatherer. You grip your makeshift spear, heart pounding like a drum in your ears. You know how this is supposed to go. Quiet approach, careful aim, swift throw. You sneak closer, every footstep a betrayal of your existence. Then you throw. It soars through the air in an arc that can only be described as embarrassingly tragic. The spear lands several feet away from the hare, which bolts like it just remembered it left the oven on. You stand there, clutching nothing, realizing you're terrible at this, like truly awful. Your ancestors are rolling in their graves, but even failure has its perks. You wander deeper into the woods, and the world around you begins to open up. The trees grow taller, straighter. You find a stream, shallow, clear, ice cold. There are tiny fish darting beneath the surface. Another note: add fish trap to your mental to-do list. For now, you drink deeply, cupping the water in your hands. It's cleaner than anything you've ever tasted, crisp and sharp like it was filtered through time itself. As you follow the stream, something catches your eye. Footprints. Not animal, human, barefoot, wide, deep impressions. Your heart skips. You're not alone. You debate whether to follow them. It could mean help, warmth, maybe a tribe. It could also mean a swift club to the face. But staying alone in a world that's already tried to freeze and starve you doesn't feel like a better plan, so you follow. The footprints lead into a thicket where you catch your first glimpse of something astonishing. A small clearing with evidence of life. A primitive shelter. Branches lashed together with vine covered in furs. Smoke drifting lazily from a nearby fire pit. No people in sight, just the remains of a meal. Bones, roasted meat, gnawed clean. You don't move, you just watch, wait. Then you hear it. A low cough. Not from an animal, from a throat. You turn and there they are. A figure, emerging from the brush, shorter than you, broad shoulders, hair braided with bone beads. Their eyes lock onto yours, and for a moment, neither of you moves. You raise your hands, a universal sign of peace. Hopefully not misinterpreted as please take my organs. They grunt. Their eyes flick to your knife, then your makeshift pouch. Something in their expression changes. Less alarmed, more curious. They step forward slowly. You speak. Hi, you say, because your brain has zero useful input. The person tilts their head. You try again, pointing to yourself. Me, then to them. You? They blink. Then unexpectedly they mimic you. You. Not perfect, but closer than you expected. It's a start. You don't know if they're Homo sapiens like you or something older. Neanderthal? Denisovan? Something else entirely. But their eyes are bright, intelligent. They hold a spear, they wear layered furs, and they're definitely not running from you. After a long pause, they gesture for you to follow, so you do. Because honestly, what choice do you have? You follow at a cautious distance, not because you think this stranger is going to club you, though that's still very much on the table, but because you're trying to read the situation. Their pace is steady, not hurried. They glance over their shoulder a couple of times to make sure you're still there, but they don't look nervous or suspicious. That's either a good sign, or they're just really confident they can take you down if it comes to that. You're kind of betting on both. The trail winds through the trees, which are thinning now, giving way to open spaces and low hills. You notice signs of movement all around. Broken branches, narrow trails packed with prints, and the occasional glimmer of something hanging in a tree. Strips of hide or bone, or tools left drying in the sun. Whoever these people are, they are not just surviving. They're organised. There's a rhythm to this world, chaotic, yes, but patterned. You're starting to see that now. The figure in front of you, still silent, leads you to another rise, and when you crest the hill, your breath catches. Down in the shallow valley below, nestled near a bend in a wide, slow-moving river, is a small camp. Maybe a dozen shelters, shaped like low domes or teepees made from branches, hides, and bundled reeds. Thin trails of smoke curl from the tops, and people move between them. Stooped figures carrying bundles, kids darting past with sticks, a dog-like creature gnawing on a bone. It's a village, not in the sense you'd think of today, but in the truest, oldest sense. A place where humans, or close relatives, live, share, fight, eat and sleep. The figure pauses before descending into the valley. They glance at you again. eyes sharp as if assessing whether you're ready for this. You nod, or you think you do. Your body's moving on instinct now, trying not to appear too overwhelmed, even as your brain screams, "This is insane. You're not prepared for this. You didn't even bring chapstick." As you walk into the camp, heads turn, conversations stop, someone yells something guttural, alerting the others maybe. You feel dozens of eyes on you, and suddenly that furry wrap you've been wearing feels like the world's most suspicious trench coat. You raise your hands again, staying still, trying not to breathe too loudly. One of the kids makes a noise and runs off, and you're not sure if that's good or bad. Then an older woman approaches, her face lined with dirt and age, but her posture straight. She wears a necklace of carved bones and what might be teeth. Her eyes narrow as she studies you. The person who led you here murmurs something to her. She doesn't blink, doesn't speak. She just walks a slow circle around you, taking everything in. Your hands, your strange posture, the way your hair's cut differently, your awkward shoes, which are really just scraps of fur you tied around your feet with vines this morning. You're very proud of them, thank you very much. Then she steps forward and very deliberately reaches out and touches your face. It's weird. You flinch, she doesn't care. Her fingers trace your jaw, your cheek, your ear. Then she grunts, turns away, and then makes a sharp hand motion. The tension in the camp shifts. It's like someone rang a bell and everyone went back to their business, though now they're sneaking side glances at you. Like you're a very strange new pet no one knows how to feed. You're led to a low shelter, just a cluster of branches covered with hides. But it's dry and the fire inside is real. A few children peek in from behind the flap and then disappear giggling. A man with a wide scar across his forehead tosses you something. You fumble it. It's food, some kind of roasted root wrapped in leaves. You sniff it, sweet, smoky, not poisoned. You take a cautious bite. It's good, shockingly good. Like a caramelized sweet potato, but with the texture of something between a chestnut and a turnip. You scarf it down while pretending to be chill about it. Soon others join you around the fire. 3 or 4 adults, including the one who found you, and the older woman from before. They don't ask questions, they just observe. Sometimes they grunt to each other. Sometimes they pass a carved stick around, a talking stick maybe, or just something to fidget with. The tension isn't hostile. It's more like when a new dog enters a pack and the others have to decide where it fits. You try to communicate. You point to yourself and say your name. They don't repeat it, but they murmur something back. You point to them. They respond with names, or sounds that feel like names. One sounds like rook. Another is just a cough followed by a sharp exhale. You're not sure how to pronounce that one without choking. Then something amazing happens. One of them picks up a stick and draws a shape in the dirt, a circle with a line across it. Then another, like a sun. Then a third, a crude animal, maybe a mammoth. They look at you, you get it. They're telling a story, you mimic them. Drawing your own symbols, a stick figure, a fire, the outline of a mountain. They nod. You're speaking caveman now, badly, but it's happening. Later, as the sun starts to dip and the sky turns that soft pink that always makes you feel weirdly emotional, you hear a distant sound. Animal calls, but rhythmic, not natural. Drums, they're faint but steady. Someone or something is out there. The others hear it too. One of them stands, alert. The old woman spits into the fire and throws a handful of something into it. Herbs or just dirt, you don't know. The flames sputter. There's tension now, and it's not about you anymore. Something is coming, or someone. You stay quiet. It's not your moment to shine, but deep inside you know the Stone Age just got a little more complicated. Still you're here, in the middle of a Paleolithic village, full of people who against all odds haven't killed you and might even let you stay. You've got food, you've got the world's worst shoes. But for now, you're not alone, and that changes everything. You wake up the next morning sore, slightly dampened, and with the new understanding of the phrase sleeping on the ground. The fire in the hut is down to its last glowing embers, and your borrowed fur covering smells faintly of old smoke and mammoth sweat. But somehow you slept. Not well, but enough to keep you upright, which feels like progress. Outside, the village is already alive. Smoke curls from cooking fires, and people move between shelters carrying baskets, tools, and hunks of meat you try not to identify too closely. You step out slowly, stretching your arms and back, trying not to look like a complete alien. No one runs at you with a spear. A couple of kids point and laugh, probably at your tangled hair or the way you almost trip over a rock the size of your own foot. You give them a half smile and a small wave. They scatter, giggling. Then you see it. Off to one side, a group gathered near a wall of exposed rock. You walk closer and your breath catches. This isn't just a wall, it's a gallery. A living open-air exhibit of early human imagination. The rock face is covered in red and black pigments. Handprints, spirals, animals in mid-stride. You see deer, aurochs, even what looks like a hunting scene with tiny stick figures driving spears into a massive, tusked beast. It's a visual record, a story captured with charcoal and crushed berry juice and ground up minerals. These people don't write, but they remember. You move closer, entranced. Someone hands you a chunk of red ochre, dry, flaky like a prehistoric crayon. You glance around and realise they're inviting you to add to it. You freeze. You're about to draw on the wall of a Stone Age cave with a bunch of actual Stone Age artists watching you. No pressure. You crouch low and start with what you know. A fire. A simple shape, triangle base, flickering lines, a little smoke. It's not amazing, but it's recognisable. You add a stick figure nearby, holding its hands up. Maybe it's you, maybe it's just a universal person freezing to death icon. One of the younger members of the group leans in, studies your work, then laughs, not unkindly, and adds their own touch. A mammoth, large and looming, towering over your tiny person. Okay, message received. You're very small here. The group starts to draw too, passing the pigment back and forth. It becomes a kind of conversation, silent but expressive. They tell stories with these lines. One image shows a child being carried through a storm. Another shows figures dancing around a large animal. One scene even seems to depict a hunt gone wrong, where the animal wins. It's funny, dark, and surprisingly relatable. You catch yourself smiling. It's so human, so familiar. In a weird way, you're less homesick now. These people aren't just surviving, they're living. They're making meaning out of this hard, dangerous world in ways that resonate thousands of years later. Then, just as you're admiring a particularly dramatic boar battle, someone behind you clears their throat. Or, well, grunts. You turn and see Ruch, the one who brought you here. He nods toward the edge of camp. You follow, feeling like you're about to be called into the principal's office, only the principal wears animal skins and probably knows 100 ways to kill you with a stick. He leads you to a large flat stone near the river. On it rests a collection of tools, stone blades, scrapers, axes, and something that looks like a prehistoric Swiss Army knife made of antler and flint. He sits and gestures for you to do the same. Then he picks up a piece of flint and begins shaping it, striking it with smooth, rhythmic blows against a chunk of quartz. Flakes scatter across the rock like prehistoric confetti. You watch, trying to take it in, the angle of the strikes, the shape of the core, the way he rotates the stone like he's coaxing something out of it. It's not brute force, it's finesse. When he hands you a flint core and a striking rock, you immediately mess it up. The flint slips, you strike it at the wrong angle, nothing happens, you strike harder, still nothing. Rook doesn't laugh, he just leans over and adjusts your grip. Then he guides your hand slowly. This time when you strike, a sliver flakes off. Not great, but something. You try again, and again. It's frustrating, painfully slow, but after a while you start to get a feel for it. The weight of the stone, the tiny angles that matter so much, the delicate balance between too soft and too hard. Hours pass, or maybe more. The light shifts, you lose track of time completely, absorbed in the work. When you finally look down, you've got a handful of semi-usable flakes and a few bruises on your palm. Rook grunts approvingly and claps you on the back so hard you nearly faceplant into the river. As you head back to camp, your hands ache and your clothes are smeared with red dust and sweat, but you feel good, like you've taken one small stubborn step toward being less of a tourist and more of a participant. Just as you reach the edge of the village, you hear something strange, a shrill whistle, followed by distant shouts. Everyone around you reacts at once. People grab tools, scoop up children, dash toward shelters. Ruch grabs your arm and shoves a spear into your hand. It's heavier than it looks, rough-hewn and wickedly sharp. You try not to drop it. A moment later, the reason for the alarm becomes clear. Figures approaching across the field. Not animals. People, but not from here. They walk in a line, tall, broad-shouldered, their bodies wrapped in furs that hang low and heavy. Their faces are harder, more angular. One of them carries a long club with what looks like a jagged tooth lashed to the end. They don't charge, but they're not smiling either. The village falls into an uneasy silence. This isn't a visit. This is a standoff. You stay back, unsure what role you're supposed to play in this ancient drama. Observer, translator, potential hostage. The old woman steps forward. So does one of the newcomers. They speak, not in full sentences, but in a series of sounds, gestures, and eye contact sharp enough to cut stone. Tension crackles. You can feel it in the air, thick as smoke. Then something shifts. One of the newcomers steps toward the rock wall, picks up a piece of ochre, and adds a new drawing to the mural, a large figure with outstretched arms. Around it spirals and lines like waves. The villagers murmur, some nod, others frown. It's a message. You're not sure what it means, but it's significant. A story being shared, or a warning, maybe. One thing's certain. Your quiet cave life just got a lot more complicated. You grip your spear tighter. You're not just surviving now, you're part of something. Tribes, stories, alliances, maybe even conflict. And you're going to need to learn fast. The strangers don't stay long. After a few more tense exchanges, a shared hunk of dried meat, and a final look at the cave wall, they vanish back into the trees the same way they arrived. Silent, deliberate, and leaving behind a faint smell of smoke and musk. The villagers slowly relax, shoulders dropping, voices rising again in that gravelly, half-sung way you've started to recognize as speech. Rook mutters something under his breath and spits into the fire, like he's clearing bad energy from the air. You, meanwhile, are still holding your spear like an awkward teenager at their first school dance. The weight of it makes your arm ache, and your heart hasn't really slowed since the visitors showed up. You lower it, quietly step back, and find a spot near the fire to sit, not sure whether to ask questions or just pretend you totally understood what all that was about. Eventually, someone sits beside you, one of the younger villagers, maybe a teenager, with wild hair and a sly, amused grin. They mime your wide-eyed look from earlier, then snort laugh like you're the funniest thing they've seen all day. You manage a half-hearted glare, but you're secretly relieved. The tension's broken, and so is the illusion that you're doing a good job of blending in. You're the village oddity. The story they're going to tell their children. Remember when the weird one from the sky joined us and couldn't even throw a rock straight? You sit together in the growing dusk, and they start carving something with a small blade. Quick, precise movements, whittling a stick into something you can't yet identify. You watch, fascinated. They notice, grin again, and toss you a chunk of wood, then offer their knife. You fumble it, of course, but you give it a try. The carving doesn't go well. Your lines are uneven, your pressure too hard. You scrape the bark but gouge the wood, turning what might have been a tool into something that looks like a chewed-up flute. Still, they nod approvingly, take it back, and twist some fibres around it like it's the start of something usable. You don't know what it is, but you feel like you helped. The next morning you wake before sunrise. The air is icy, your breath forming thick clouds in the pale gloom. The village is still. Fires are mostly out. The sky above is a massive, endless gradient from indigo to soft pink, scattered with unfamiliar constellations. You stand, stretching stiff limbs, and walk toward the river to splash some life back into your face. The water's like liquid knives. You gasp, but it helps. Then you hear it, rustling, then snapping. You duck behind a tree, heart pounding. But it's not a predator. It's a group from the village, Rook among them, gearing up for something. They carry spears, slings and baskets. A few wear smeared stripes of paint across their cheeks. One sharpens a blade by grinding it against a flat rock. You don't need a translator to know what this is, a hunt. You step forward hesitantly. Rook sees you. He tilts his head as if to say, "Really? You want to do this?" You nod. His eyebrows rise, then, without a word, he tosses you a stone-tipped spear. You catch it, barely, and join the group. You're going on your first Stone Age hunting trip. The forest is a symphony of tension. Every twig snap sounds like thunder. You walk in a staggered line, eyes scanning the undergrowth. The others move like they belong here, silent, sure-footed, part of the landscape. You, meanwhile, are like a clunky robot in a nature documentary. Every branch seems to grab your fur. Every rock is a trap for your feet. After an hour or so, the group halts. A few gestures are exchanged. A hand signal, a sharp whistle. You peer through the trees and see it. A deer. Not huge, but enough to feed several people. It drinks at a stream, ears twitching, its legs delicate as reeds. The group fans out, slow and patient, boxing it in without a sound. You stay where you are, trying not to breathe too loudly. Ruch gives a low grunt, then movement. A slingstone whistles through the air and cracks against a tree near the deer. It bolts, right toward your hiding spot. This is your moment. You raise your spear. Your hands shake. The deer leaps closer. You throw and miss. The spear sails overhead, lands with a pitiful thunk, and the deer veers, nearly running over your foot before disappearing into the trees. You stand there, arms still raised, absolutely stunned at how badly that just went. Rook jogs up, retrieves your spear and hands it back. He looks like he's about to say something sarcastic, but instead just shrugs. One of the others laughs, a short bark of amusement, and then they move on like it's no big deal. Missed shots happen, especially when you're new. You trudge after them, embarrassed but weirdly motivated. You want to get better, not just for survival, but because you can feel something changing in you. This place, these people, they're real, and you're becoming a part of it, even if you suck at hunting. Hours later, you return empty-handed but wiser. That night, the group eats from stored rations, smoked meat and roots, carefully rationed. You sit near the fire, replaying every second of the hunt in your head. You were slow, clumsy, inaccurate, but you were there, you tried, and they let you. After the meal, someone starts to drum, not with a real drum, but by beating a hollowed log with carved sticks. A rhythm builds, slow and hypnotic. Others join, clapping, stomping, humming, low and deep. A woman stands and begins to sway, arms rising and falling, feet stamping in time. It's not a dance you recognize. It's raw and grounded, full of strength and presence. Then someone pulls you up. You stumble into the circle, awkward as ever, and for a moment you panic. But then you just move, copying what they do, stamping your feet, swinging your arms, letting the rhythm pull you along. It's strange and wild and kind of freeing. You're laughing, sweating, alive in a way you haven't felt since you got here. In that moment, under the stars, surrounded by ancient music and flickering firelight, you forget the modern world entirely. No phones, no screens, no deadlines. Just your breath, your heartbeat, and the pulse of something ancient in your bones. You won't survive here because of what you know. You'll survive because of what you're willing to become. You wake the next morning sore in places you didn't even know had nerve endings. Your legs are jelly, your shoulders are bruised from sleeping on rock, and your hips feel like they've been used as target practice for mammoth kicks. But none of that compares to the deep, raw ache of hunger clawing at your belly. Not the casual, forgot-to-eat lunch kind of hunger. This is the kind that makes you eye a pile of tree bark and start wondering what it might taste like boiled. Outside, the camp is stirring. Smoke from morning fires snakes lazily upward into the mist. And people move with practiced efficiency, sharpening tools, repairing furs, tending to the embers from last night. A few of the kids are laughing, chasing each other with sticks, and for a moment it looks almost normal. Then you remember, this normal includes freezing temperatures, wild predators, and a very real possibility that breakfast might just be another long, awkward chew on something with fur still stuck to it. As you're scraping frost off the edge of a water bowl, a shadow falls over you. It's her again, the old woman. The one with the necklace of teeth and the kind of eyes that feel like they've seen every mistake you've ever made, including the ones you're planning for later. She crouches beside you, her bones cracking like a campfire as she lowers herself down and lays a bundle in front of you. Inside it, mushrooms, roots, a few tiny berries, and something that might be animal fat or just a really disappointing meatball. She points to each item, grunting softly. Then she picks up a mushroom, pretends to eat it, pauses, and dramatically keels over. You stare wide-eyed as she lies still for a few seconds, then pops one eye open and gives you a wicked grin. A lesson. Got it. Food safety, Stone Age edition. You sort the pile with her, trying to commit everything to memory. What's edible, what's not, what's a delicious snack, and what will turn your insides into soup. There's no written language here, no app, no handy guide, just instinct, passed down generation after generation. She points to a root, then to a pile of coals, miming cooking. You nod. Fire good, raw root bad, understood. Then she hands you the mushroom that won't kill you and waits. You eat it, slowly, cautiously. It's earthy and rubbery and tastes a little like wet socks, but you keep it down. She nods approvingly, pats your shoulder and stands with a grunt. Lesson over. Later, you're sitting by one of the fires, holding your gut and hoping this mushroom wasn't part of some prehistoric prank. When a group approaches from the outer edge of camp, they're strangers, but not the tense, weapon-wielding kind from earlier. These folks seem more relaxed. One carries a child slung across their back in a fur sling, and another is limping slightly, supported by a long walking stick carved with swirling patterns. They are greeted warmly, and soon the camp buzzes with new energy. You edge closer and spot something that makes your heart skip. One of the strangers is wearing something very modern looking. Not fully modern, but almost. A piece of jewellery that resembles twisted wire, like copper or gold shaped into a spiral around their wrist. You stare at it too long. They notice. Your eyes meet. They nod just slightly. The elder sees the exchange and calls the new arrivals into the communal shelter. You're not invited. Not yet. But something in you shifts. There's more to this world than survival. There's trade, travel, connection, maybe even culture more advanced than you expected. And someone, somewhere, has learned to make jewellery out of metal. You're not as early in history as you thought. Later that afternoon, a small group heads out with baskets and digging tools made from antlers. You tag along thinking it's another hunting trip. It's not. It's foraging. Real foraging. Digging in frost-hardened soil for roots, slicing fungus off the sides of trees, checking animals and tracks for signs of burrows or leftover caches. You quickly realise how little you know about nature. What plants to eat. What trees mean waters nearby. What colour of moss indicates rot or freshness. One of the foragers, a wiry woman with a jawline sharp enough to slice cheese, points to a patch of leaves and gestures for you to dig. You do. After some effort, you uncover a fat, knobby root. She gives you a nod of approval. You smile, then she gestures again, less friendly. You realise your posture was all wrong, and now your legs are soaked with icy mud. You're learning slowly, one misstep at a time. By sunset, your basket has a modest haul. Roots, tubers, a few clumps of greens that smell like bitter lettuce. Back at camp, these are cleaned, chopped, tossed into a hide-lined pit and boiled using heated rocks. It's a slow process, but the smell that rises from the pit is shockingly appetizing. Savoury, herbal, and vaguely like soup made by someone who's never heard of salt. And you eat with the others, and no one laughs when you burn your tongue on the first bite. The root stew is filling, warm, and weirdly comforting. You chew slowly, your jaw sore, but your belly finally not gnawing itself in protest. Later, someone brings out a hollowed gourd filled with fermented juice, tangy, slightly fizzy, and just enough to make your head buzz. Ruch drinks deeply, then hands it to you. You hesitate, then sip, and wince. It's like biting a sour apple that's been in the sun too long. But the warmth spreads quickly, and you pass it along, trying not to choke. As the night deepens and laughter rises from the fire circle, someone begins to sing a slow, warbling tune that feels more vibration than melody. Others join in, layering their voices. You don't understand the words, if there even are words, but the feeling is clear. It's a song of gratitude, of endurance, of another day survived. You lie back, staring at the stars. You think about how little you understand this place, and how much more there is to learn. But you're starting to grasp the rhythm. The balance, the give and take between life and death, work and rest, hunger and plenty. You were a tourist yesterday. Today you foraged, you learned what not to eat, you helped cook, you shared in the meal, you drank prehistoric wine and survived the hangover in advance. These things matter. They're not huge victories, but in this world, small wins keep you alive, and you're starting to earn them. The sky's the colour of cold ash when you're woken by the sound of horns. 3 short, sharp viejo blasts that echo across the valley. At first you think it's just another dream, one of the strange, half-waking ones you've been having since you got here. But no, people are moving. Fast. Tents flap open, weapons appear, and within seconds the calm of the morning is replaced by a current of tension that tightens everything in your chest. You stumble upright, fur slipping off your shoulders, heart already racing. Rook passes you at a jog, already armed with his spear and slinging a leather pouch over one shoulder. He doesn't say anything, just gives you a look, a kind of get-it-together expression that transcends all language. You do your best. The old woman, the one you've now started calling Grandma Bones in your head, lovingly, emerges from her hut with a walking stick and a bundle of herbs. She looks annoyed, not afraid, and you take some comfort in that. If she's not panicking, maybe you shouldn't either. Or maybe she's just had so much life thrown at her, a little more drama doesn't even register. Word travels quickly. You start to piece together the story. A mammoth has been spotted, a big one, not far off. It's wounded, limping and travelling alone. A rare opportunity. Dangerous, obviously. Mammoths don't just lie down and let themselves become dinner. But a lone, injured one, that's the kind of hunt that feeds a tribe for weeks, maybe longer. The hunters are assembling. There are rituals involved, of course. Paints are applied, bold red stripes under the eyes, circles on the chest. One of the men dances in place, stamping and humming, while another sharpens a blade that looks like it could split your arm open by accident. You're not sure if you're going with them, but someone hands you a second spear, and you figure that answers the question. Soon you're trekking out across open land, the village a shrinking dot behind you. The air is sharp, slicing through your layers of hide like cold glass. Frost clings to the grass, and your breath steams ahead of you like smoke from a dragon's nostrils. Around you, the hunters move in a formation that's not quite military, but far from random. This isn't their first mammoth. Rook moves up beside you, pointing to a set of tracks in the dirt. Massive, round, deep. Then he gestures to broken branches, scraped bark, patch of dung the size of a small chair. He makes a snorting sound and smacks his chest twice. Universal sign language for this one is big. You nod, trying to keep your heart from bailing out through your ribs. Hours pass. The sun climbs, warming the frost to mist. The tracks grow fresher. Then you hear it. Low, rhythmic, distant. A sound that's more vibration than noise. A kind of deep rumbling whomp that you feel in your feet before it ever reaches your ears. The mammoth is close. The group spreads out along a ridge, crouching behind rocks and bushes. Below, in a shallow basin of mud and broken trees, stands the mammoth. It's enormous, easily 4 meters tall at the shoulder, covered in thick, shaggy hair that ripples as it moves. One of its tusks is broken. Its left hind leg drags slightly, but it's still terrifying, still powerful in that way that makes your instincts scream run, but no one runs. Rook gestures for silence, then starts handing out tasks. One group will circle wide to distract it. Another will push it toward the mud, slowing it down. Your job? You're the backup, whatever that means. Probably something between decoy and spear fodder. You sneak along the ridge with the others, every step deliberate. Then someone lets out a cry, sharp, loud, meant to provoke. The mammoth roars, an earth-shaking trumpet that turns your bones to jelly and charges toward the sound. The distraction team scatters. Spears fly. One hits its side but bounces off. Another grazes its leg. It stumbles slightly, enraged now, thrashing its head, swinging that single tusk with enough force to lift a grown man skyward. You clutch your spear, palms slick with sweat. Then Rook gives the signal. Time to move. You break cover and charge, joining the others in a coordinated push. You jab your spear forward. Not at the beast, not yet, but at its flank, trying to guide it toward the pit of mud. It turns, furious to you, and your brain unhelpfully reminds you this thing can crush you without noticing. But it's tiring. You can see it now. Its eyes are wild. It's bleeding from its side. Its foot catches in the mud. Then it happens. It lurches forward, slips, collapses with a deafening crash that shakes the ground. For a moment, no one moves. Then the final phase begins. The hunters surge forward. Spears plunge, shouts fill the air. You hang back, shaking, not out of cowardice, but because you're frozen by the reality of what you're seeing. It's brutal, not cruel, there's no joy in it, but primal, direct, necessary. When it's over, the silence returns. The mammoth lies still. The hunters breathe heavily, stained with sweat, mud and blood. And then, slowly a few begin to sing, not in celebration but in reverence. A low, rhythmic chant that feels less like victory and more like acknowledgement. This animal gave its life, and they know the weight of that. You're invited to place your hand on the mammoth's thick hide. It's still warm. You do it, silently, and close your eyes. You have no words, just awe. The tribe sets to work immediately, skinning, carving, stripping meat from bone. Everything will be used, nothing wasted. Even the bones will be tools. The stomach can be turned into a water pouch, the fat, fuel for lamps. You help carry a large rib back to the sled they're assembling from branches and hide. By nightfall, you're back in camp. Fires roar. The air smells of meat, smoke, and sweat. It's not a feast, it's too solemn for that. But it's communal, earned. You eat roasted mammoth for the first time. It's gamey, rich, and satisfying in a way that goes far beyond taste. It's survival. Proof that effort matters, that you can contribute. Someone throws an arm around your shoulder. Rook, laughing. A proud, wordless gesture that makes your chest swell. You didn't kill the mammoth, not directly, but you were there. You helped. You belonged. Later, a new image appears on the cave wall, huge, sprawling, fresh. A mammoth rendered in black and red. Around it, stick figures. One of them looks like it's wearing your sad excuse for shoes. You're part of the story now, and the story is just beginning. Morning after the mammoth hunt hits different. You're sore, but not in the usual I slept on a rock wrapped in fur and mild shame kind of way. This is a deeper ache, satisfaction fused into your muscles. Like your body finally understands what it means to earn something with your whole self. Every step you take around the camp feels heavier, not just from fatigue, but from the realization. You're no longer just the strange outsider from nowhere. You're the strange outsider who helped take down a mammoth. People notice you now, not with suspicion, but with nods, grunts of acknowledgement. Even the kids have stopped openly mocking your face when you walk by. One of them even hands you a tiny piece of charred meat this morning. Probably a dare, but you eat it anyway, like it's a Michelin-starred dish. Today's different. No one's running off to chase prey or sharpen spears. The tribe's slowed down, basking in the rare security that comes with too much meat and not enough immediate threat. Still, there's work to do. The mammoth carcass has been brought in pieces. Enormous bones now lie in sorted piles, ribs leaning against shelters like skeletal scaffolding. Hides are being stretched, scraped, smoked. It smells like blood, earth, and something rich and fatty that clings to your nostrils and makes your stomach flip between hunger and nausea. You offer to help and are waved over by a group working on bones. One of them, short, wiry, with a serious face and a necklace made entirely of bird claws, hands you a long rib and a flint blade. He makes a slicing motion along the edge, then points to a pile where others are working. You copy him, carefully shaving bits of meat and tendon off the rib. The blade bites deeper than you expect, nearly taking your thumb with it. He laughs. You pretend it doesn't hurt. It really, really hurts. As you work, you notice how methodical the process is. This isn't chaotic butchery. It's an art. Every tendon has a purpose. Every joint is treated with respect. The marrow is carefully extracted, the hide cleaned and smoked, and the bones sorted for tools, weapons, or ceremonial use. You're carving up history, literal prehistory. One of the older men sits nearby, working silently with a large chunk of ivory. He shaves it slowly with a curved flake of obsidian, revealing something beneath. A shape long and slender. A spear point? No, too narrow. It's decorative, maybe ceremonial. You realise he's carving a figurine, something abstract but unmistakably human. Broad hips, no face, heavy thighs. You've seen this before, in museums, the Venus figurines. Evidence of early human spirituality, fertility worship, or just really specific artistic taste. He doesn't look at you as he works, but you're drawn to it anyway. This isn't just survival, it's culture, expression, something beyond food and fire. Later in the day, you're called over by Rook, who's crouched next to a collection of sharp-edged rocks, antler shafts, and sinew cords. He holds up one of the bones you helped clean earlier and taps it. Then he points to the other items. You get it. Time to make tools. You sit beside him, and together you start fashioning something that vaguely resembles a spear. Not the clumsy one you were handed before, but a real one. Balanced, shaped, sharp. He teaches you how to split the shaft with a wedge, insert the flint point, bind it with sinew, and coat it with tree sap to seal the joint. It's slow work, and you mess up more than once, but by the end of the process, you're holding something sturdy, dangerous, useful. Your own weapon, built from a creature you helped bring down. Rook tests its weight, gives a satisfied grunt, then gently punches your shoulder. A compliment. Maybe. You've learnt not to question these things too much. That night, the fire burns higher than usual. Not in celebration, this isn't a party tribe, but there's a feeling of shared accomplishment in the air. Skewers of mammoth meat crackle over the flames, their fat sizzling and dripping into the coals. You sit with the others, passing around hunks of meat, gnawing at bones like it's completely normal, because now it kind of is. Someone starts a rhythm, bone against stone, steady and deep. Then comes the singing again. Not full songs, just phrases. Tones. Half-remembered chants passed down like fossils in sound form. This time, you don't just listen, you hum along quietly, unsure of the notes, but feeling them anyway. Then comes the paint. Rook appears with a bowl of red ochre and dabs it on your cheek with 2 fingers. He doesn't explain, he doesn't have to. One by one, others are marked too. Red swirls, dots, lines. Symbols of the hunt, maybe, or of strength. Or maybe just art. Another member of the tribe, a tall, androgynous figure with sharp eyes and long braided hair, sits beside you and begins to paint your arm with a pattern of dots and lines. You sit still, letting it happen. It's weirdly intimate, but not uncomfortable. By the time they're done, you look down and realise you're part of something bigger than yourself. Marked, literally and figuratively, as part of the tribe. Maybe not fully accepted yet, but close enough to be painted. The conversation around the fire turns more animated. You catch pieces of it. Mammoth, river, danger, storm. You think they're planning something. Maybe migration, maybe an offering, hard to say, but the tone shifts. There's seriousness under the surface. Later you find yourself wandering toward the cave wall again, drawn to the art. You find a spot empty, blank, and add your mark. A crude figure holding a spear standing beside a giant tusked beast. You're no artist, but the shape feels right, like something that needed to exist. You press your hand to the wall beside it, then smear red pigment around your fingers, leaving a ghost of your presence behind. It's not much, but it's enough. You sleep hard that night, deeper than you have since arriving. Your dreams are strange, long shadows, echoing drums, firelight dancing across stone. You dream of your own face painted on a cave wall smiling with red ochre teeth, of mammoths walking through mist, of stars that whisper your name in a language older than speech. You're changing, becoming someone else, or maybe just remembering who you used to be before the modern world buried it. You wake to the sound of rain, not a soft drizzle, the kind that gently whispers you awake, but a full-throated, sky-shaking downpour. It lashes against the hide roof, seeps through the seams, and plinks onto your forehead with all the subtlety of someone flicking your brain with cold fingers. You shuffle out from beneath the wet patch, bleary-eyed and stiff, and sit up in the gloom. The fire's mostly dead, the air is thick with smoke and damp fur, and everything smells vaguely like wet mammoth. Glorious. Outside, the camp is a slow-motion painting. People move through the grey mist in jerky, determined lines, hauling meat into shelters, stacking tools under hides, trying to beat the rising water that's already pooling in the trampled earth. Children splash through the mud like it's a game, their laughter a sharp contrast to the adults' grim focus. You stand, groaning like a log, and tug your furs tighter. They're soaked, everything is. You have the squelching shoes to prove it. You step outside and immediately regret it. The rain hits your face like slaps. You slip once, just once, but it's spectacular, right in front of a rook who's hauling a bundle of tusk segments and gives you a deadpan stare as you flail into the mud like an underprepared frog. He doesn't laugh, he just blinks, grunts, and keeps walking, which is somehow worse. You wipe the gunk from your face and help anyway, lugging heavy, awkward shapes toward the largest shelter where the hides are reinforced and the floor is dry. Inside, it's a cramped, steaming mess of supplies, people, and dripping furs. But it's warm. Rook tosses the bundle down and for once doesn't immediately shove another job at you. Instead, he sits. You do too. Silence fills the space between you like steam. Then, without looking, Rook reaches into a nearby basket and pulls out something odd. Smooth, bone-coloured air, about the size of a grapefruit. He turns it over in his hands, then offers it to you. It's a skull, small, animal, maybe some kind of monkey. A weird cat, you can't tell. It's been polished, carved with faint lines. Not decorative, more like meaningful, ritualistic. He gestures to it, then to the fire, then to his own chest. You frown. He tries again. He points to the skull, then taps the side of his head. Then he mimes sleeping. Dying? Dreaming? You start to catch on. It's not just a skull, it's a spirit vessel. Or at least it represents one. You suddenly realise you're getting a very early anthropology lesson, taught by someone who doesn't speak your language but still somehow knows exactly how to show you what matters. He sets the skull in a small bowl lined with dried flowers and pushes it into the firelight. A small ritual, a simple one, but it hums with gravity. Around you, others begin to settle in. You realise this is more than storm sheltering. This is a moment of remembrance, maybe even mourning. One of the elders begins to chant, low, slow syllables that repeat like the rise and fall of the rain outside. Another adds a rhythmic beat by tapping two stones together. Then someone produces a flute, not quite a flute, more like a hollowbone pipe, and blows a haunting tune that cuts through the damp like a thread of warmth. You listen, unmoving. The chant is hypnotic. You don't know the words, but the feeling behind them is unmistakable. They're honouring the dead, ancestors maybe, spirits, or even the mammoth. You remember something from school, how early humans may have developed rituals around death long before agriculture or metal, that the idea of memory, of honouring the past, was one of the first real signs of culture. You're watching that now, living it. It's not primitive, it's profound. And then, as if the universe agrees, the storm quiets. Just a little. The pounding lessens, becomes a soft, steady patter. The fire cracks louder. Brighter. You lean forward, drawn to it, and notice something you missed before. A small figure, carved from bone nestled in the flowers beside the skull. It's shaped like a person, but distorted. Arms raised. No face. It could be fear. It could be power. Or both. A child beside you points at it, then draws in the dirt with a finger. A spiral, then a line, then another. It doesn't mean anything to you, but the way they nod when they finish makes you think it means everything to them. After the ritual ends, the space feels lighter. The fire burns steadier. People relax. One of the hunters passes you a handful of roasted tubers, salted with ash and whatever the prehistoric version of seasoning is. You chew in silence. They taste earthy and sharp, like survival itself. Later, when the rain finally stops, people pour back into the camp. Their energy lifted. Hides are shaken out, fires are stoked. It's like the storm never happened, but the ritual hangs in the air like incense. Everything feels reset. You wander back to your cave mural. Something inside you needs to mark this moment. You pick up a chunk of ochre and draw, not a mammoth this time, not a hunt. You draw the skull, the fire, the spiral, and beside it a figure seated in a circle surrounded by shadows and light. As you're working, someone joins you. The elder with the carved figurine. She watches silently, then dips her own fingers in black ash and adds a swirl to your design. 3 tight curves radiating from a point. You don't know what it means, but it feels important. Sacred, maybe. You don't talk. You don't need to. You sit there until the stars come out, the sky finally clear again. You trace constellations with your eyes, not the ones you know, but the ones this tribe sees. Creatures, gods, ancestors dancing above you. You realise that in this world, even the night sky has memory. Everything does. You head back to your shelter, curl under the fur and let yourself drift. The fire is warm, or your belly is full, and your mind, though stuffed with questions, is quiet for once. You're starting to see the Stone Age not as a brutal, barbaric slog through chaos and danger, but as a world built on patterns, belief, community, and memory. And you, odd, fumbling outsider, are becoming part of it. You're starting to get used to waking up without alarms. No buzzing phone, no chirping smartwatch, no glow of a blue screen demanding your attention. Just warmth, the rhythmic breathing of someone snoring lightly in the shelter beside you, and the faint scent of smoke woven into everything you own. The fire's burned low, just glowing coals now, but it's enough to warm your fingers as you stretch and sit up. Your back cracks in 4 distinct places, each one a prehistoric reminder that stone doesn't care about your comfort. You step outside into the morning chill, which nips at your cheeks with familiar rudeness. The sky's clear now, last night's storm scrubbed it clean, and the rising sun spills golden light across the soaked grass and river stones. The camp hums with the sleepy rhythm of early chores. A few people are already huddled over fires, others out checking meat racks or hauling water in animal stomachs, stitched together like grotesque balloons. You pick up a gourd and join the water hauling group, falling into step without needing to be told what to do. And that's when it hits you. Not the gourd, it's light, but the realization. You fit here. Not seamlessly, not yet. But the routines are familiar now. You know where to step to avoid tripping. You recognize the rhythm of the morning tasks, the order in which things get done, the quiet exchanges of grunts, nods and glances. No one treats you like you're useless anymore. Or at least not as useless. That's progress. You crouch by the river and dip the gourd beneath the surface. The water is freezing, because of course it is, but you no longer gasp or flinch. You just let your hands go numb and get on with it. A few others laugh nearby, flicking water at each other, like kids anywhere else would. One of them, Malu, you think. A sprinter with long limbs and a face like carved wood waves you over. He beckons you toward a nearby tree, then points up into its branches. At first, you don't see anything. Then you spot it. A small bundle of fur and limbs tangled in the fork of two branches. An animal. Dead. A catch from a snare, maybe, left overnight. Malu grins, tosses a stone, and it thuds against the trunk. The creature drops hard and lands at your feet. It's some kind of tree-dwelling rodent, like a squirrel's meaner, fatter cousin. Malu gestures for you to take it. You hesitate, unsure of what that means. Is it a gift, a test, a joke? He nods again, more seriously this time. It is a gift. You pick it up, hold it like it might explode, and nod back. Thanks, you think? Back at the fire, you show your prize to the nearest group of cooks. They inspect it like chefs judging a weird entry on a cooking show, then give a few grunts of approval. Someone takes it from you and starts to work, slicing expertly with a flint knife, skinning, gutting, roasting. You're ushered closer to watch. A hands-on tutorial complete with hand gestures and what might be sarcastic commentary in a language you still barely understand. Once cooked, the meat is passed around. The skin is stretched and pegged to dry. The bones are set aside, nothing is wasted. You eat your share, tender, smoky, oddly sweet, and no one mocks your chewing this time. Maybe because you helped bring it to the fire, even if all you did was catch it when gravity did most of the work. Later, you're helping Malu check the other snares. He moves with a kind of effortless grace, ducking under branches, sliding through brush without snapping a single twig. You trail behind, trying to mimic him, but probably looking more like a distracted bear cub. Still, you're learning where to place traps, how to disguise them, how to read animal signs. Scat becomes a roadmap. Scratch marks tell stories. Every broken twig means something. And again, that strange sense of belonging bubbles up. This isn't just instinct anymore, it's muscle memory starting to form, logic bending to the rules of this time, this world. You're no longer just surviving by chance, you're adapting. At midday, you return to camp and find the others gathered in a circle near the fire pit. There's excitement in the air, hushed but buzzing. At the centre is the old woman, Grandma Bones, seated on a hide, with a bowl of smouldering herbs in her lap. Beside her stands a girl, maybe 13, wrapped in a ceremonial cloak of feathers and red paint. Her eyes are wide but determined. A rite, that much is obvious. Some kind of coming-of-age ceremony. The fire is stoked. Ashes rubbed onto the girl's arms in long streaks. One of the elders begins to speak, not loudly but with steady authority. You can't understand the words, but the tone is unmistakable, sacred, ancient, practiced. The girl steps forward, stands still as stone, and receives a necklace. A single polished tooth strung on sinew. She bows her head. The crowd exhales as one. Then, surprisingly, she turns to you. You flinch. But she walks forward, raises her hand, and presses a finger to your forehead. A red dot of pigment. Everyone watches. You freeze. What just happened? Grandma Bones lets out a soft, breathy laugh, the closest thing to amusement you've heard from her. The girl steps back, ceremony complete. Later, Rook explains with a few broken signs and words. The girl chose to mark you as part of her memory of the rite. It means she respects you, honours your role, however small. The dot means you were there, that you mattered. You sit by the fire that evening in silence, feeling the red pigment dry on your skin. You could wipe it off, but you don't. Instead, you look around at the tribe, talking, cooking, sharpening tools, mending clothes, and for the first time you don't feel like you're pretending. You are part of this. The boundaries between then and now, visitor and resident, modern and ancient, they're blurring, fading. A child clambers into your lap without warning, curls up and falls asleep instantly. You don't move. You just sit there, a human heater, watching the firelight dance across familiar faces, and in the darkness beyond, where the forest waits and the stars shimmer, cold and clear, you feel something watching. Not threatening, but ancient. A presence, time itself, maybe, or just the echo of everything that's come before you. You breathe it in, you belong. The next morning you wake to an argument, or what sounds like an argument. Shouted words in the gravelly, vowel-heavy language of the tribe, punctuated by wild hand gestures and the occasional stomp. You sit up groggily, brush the dried spit from your cheek, and blink at the half-lit sky outside your shelter. The child who used you as a mattress the night before is already gone, and the camp buzzes with tense energy that has nothing to do with breakfast. You pull on your damp, crusty furs, one of which is definitely starting to grow mould, and shuffle toward the noise. Near the fire pit, a cluster has formed around two men standing toe-to-toe. One is Rook, arms crossed, jaw set. The other is a younger man you haven't seen before, leaner, dressed in tighter furs, with a necklace made from polished bones and a cocky tilt to his posture. His face is sharp, his expression all smugness and challenge. The vibe is unmistakable. This guy's a problem. It takes a minute, but the gist of the argument becomes clear, even through the language barrier. The stranger, whose name sounds like Jato, is from a nearby group. He's here with others from his camp, the same ones who arrived days ago wearing the spiral jewellery and bringing news of strange lands and strange beasts. Apparently, there's tension about a kill. A large boar that stumbled too close to a shared hunting ground. 2 arrows, 2 claims, 2 groups, 1 dead pig. A classic prehistoric standoff. The crowd murmurs, grunts, nods. Rook points to the ground, mimicking the path of the boar. Jato interrupts with a grin and an exaggerated motion of his own. At some point, someone throws a stick, just a short, frustrated toss, but the message is clear. This needs settling. Not just with words, with action. Jato turns and, points at you. Your stomach drops. You glance at Rook, who looks like he's just swallowed something bitter. He shakes his head once, but the crowd's already reacting. Murmurs rise, hands wave, someone starts drawing a circle in the dirt. Jato grins wider, and just like that, you've been drafted into your first prehistoric duel. Okay, duel is a strong word. There's no talk of bloodshed, no raised weapons, no one looks particularly homicidal, but this is definitely a thing. A way to settle disputes without anyone getting trampled by a mammoth. It's half game, half ritual, and it involves throwing something like a discus, but made from a flat piece of carved wood, and hitting a target painted onto the side of a large stone. Closest throw wins. Bragging rights, pride, maybe even first cuts of the next kill. And apparently you're the stand-in for Rook's group, because nothing says honour the tribe like handing the event to the sweaty, wide-eyed stranger who can barely throw a spear straight. Still, you step into the circle. What else are you going to do? Run? Actually, yeah. Running crosses your mind, briefly, but you don't. The crowd closes in. Someone paints your cheek with a quick swirl of black ash. Another hands you the disc, surprisingly heavy, smooth-edged, warm from their palm. You hold it like it might explode. Jato struts into the circle, of course, swinging the disc back and forth like a pro. He winks at someone in the crowd, maybe even you, and takes his shot. It sails, a perfect arc, dead center. The crowd erupts in satisfied grunts. He turns, lifts both arms like a champion, then mock bows in your direction. Cool, great, wonderful. Your palms sweat, you step up, you adjust your stance. You consider physics, angles, velocity, but none of that matters here. You can't math your way through this, so you just throw. It's okay, not great, not awful. The disc spins wide, dips low, then thunks into the ground just off-centre. A foot or two shy of Jato's. There's a collective from the crowd, a polite, disappointed hum. Jato chuckles. Someone pats your back, a mix of sympathy and nice try, but Rook, he just nods once, slow and thoughtful, like he expected this. You didn't win, but you showed up, that's something. Then something actually interesting happens. The girl from the rite of passage, the one who marked you, steps forward. She picks up the disc, spins it once in her hand, and without a word launches it toward the stone. Dead center. First try. The crowd gasps. Even Jato raises an eyebrow. There's a pause, then laughter. The kind that rises and falls like a wave. A few people begin chanting her name, or what you think is her name, and she stands there, grinning just enough to let you know this was not luck. It was a message. Sometimes the youngest are the sharpest. Jato shrugs, mock salutes, and disappears into the crowd. Conflict over. Borite settled with flair. The girl earns respect, you earn a little less embarrassment, and Rook finally cracks a grin as he claps you on the shoulder so hard your spine readjusts. The rest of the day passes with a strange lightness. Tensions cooled, energy shifted. You go about your tasks, gathering firewood, gutting fish someone pulled from the river, fixing your sad excuse of a water pouch, with a bit more bounce in your step. Even the food tastes better tonight, though maybe that's just the seasoning of not being publicly humiliated. That evening, You sit near the fire as the tribe talks, or sings, or both. It's hard to tell where language ends and music begins here. Someone tells a story about a man swallowed by a cave spirit and spit back out 10 seasons later, covered in fur and speaking the language of wolves. Everyone laughs at the punchline, whatever it was. You listen, soaking it in. These aren't just survivalists. These are storytellers, entertainers, judges, tricksters. Civilization didn't start with cities. It started with circles around fire, sharing food and tales in the dark. You think about Jato, about the strange mix of competition and ritual, about how it resolved something that could have ended badly in a way that left everyone with dignity. Conflict, but with rules, order, even here. You lie back, staring at the sky. Tonight, the stars seem to spin slightly, as if the earth itself is nudging you forward. You may not be the best thrower of discs, or spears, or words, but you're learning, and you're still here. You wake up to singing, not the warbling chant you've gotten used to around the fire, but something lighter, almost playful, like someone humming to themselves while walking through a sun-drenched meadow. Except you're still half asleep, your cheeks stuck to a hide, and the air smells like burned fat and damp fur. You sit up groggy, scratching at a bug bite that's somehow become part of your permanent skin. Outside, the morning is soft, no wind, no storm, just the hush of mist hugging the valley, and the faint rustle of life beyond the camp. The singing continues, closer now. You peek out of the shelter and see her, the girl from the right, the one who painted your forehead, walking past with a woven basket full of charred bones. She's dropping them into a pit near the forest's edge, humming a song with no real tune but endless rhythm. You watch for a minute, then decide without any actual plan that you'll follow her. She doesn't flinch when you approach, just glances sideways, eyebrows raised like she's already a little amused by your presence. You point to her basket, then to yourself. "Help," you offer, because it's all you've got. She gives you a slight nod and gestures toward the main fire where more bones have been set aside, cleaned, dried, ready for something. You grab a handful, not the biggest ones. You're not trying to impress anyone with your bicep strength. You just want to know what this is about. As you walk together, she starts to talk. Not to you exactly, more like around you. Soft words, a flowing stream of syllables you can't pass but which feel intentional, like she's explaining something to the air, or to whatever spirit she believes are listening. Occasionally, she stops to place a bone in a specific formation, 3 lined up like a little fence, 2 stacked like an arrow. It's not random, it's a pattern. She glances at you, then draws a rough spiral in the mud with a finger, surrounding a small pile of cracked vertebrae. You recognize the symbol. It's similar to what she painted beside your cave drawing. You point to it, raise your brows. She says a word, you repeat it, but butcher it so badly she snorts through her nose. She corrects you. You try again, slightly better. Eventually, she draws another shape in the dirt. This time a human figure surrounded by small concentric rings. She points to you, then to the figure, then to the bones. And that's when it hits you. This is a burial. Not a funeral exactly. No one's crying, no one's wailing, but a ritual disposal of bones, likely from the mammoth or other recent hunts. A giving back. You suddenly remember that in some early cultures, bones weren't just leftovers. They were memory, magic, carriers of essence. Flesh fed the body, but bones stayed behind to whisper to the earth. You glance at your handful of ribs and knuckles. Suddenly they feel a lot more important. You follow her lead, carefully placing your pieces where she gestures. She nods at your effort, neither impressed nor disappointed, just noting that you're trying. And in this world, trying counts. Later, as the bones lie in neat arrangements, she lights a small bundle of dried herbs and waves the smoke over the area. You close your eyes, breathing it in. It smells like sage and something else. Sweet, sharp, slightly peppery. Calming. The mist begins to lift around you, and with it, something else. Your tension, your doubt. For a moment, everything is still. When you return to camp, the energy has shifted again. People are gathering around a fire, and there's a buzz in the air. Not fear, anticipation. You spot Rook sharpening a spearhead with quick practiced motions, his mouth set in a hard line. You approach, and he holds out the flint point toward you, not offering it exactly, just letting you examine it. It's different from the others. Longer, more symmetrical, tied into a shaft with sinew braided so tightly it looks machine-made. Then he says a word you don't know, points to the forest, repeats it. You say it back. He nods. It means hunt, probably, or danger, or maybe just big. Within the hour, you're moving again. This time with fewer people, only 5 or 6. All of them armed, focused. No packs, no baskets. This isn't a gathering trip, this is something else. You follow them into the trees, deeper than you've gone before. The forest here feels older, thicker trunked, more gnarled. You swear the air smells different too, less pine, more musk. Something is watching, you feel it before you hear it, and then you do hear it. A low, resonant growl. Not close, but not far either. It rises from the underbrush like steam curling around your ears, making every hair on your body stand up. The hunters freeze, weapons raise, no one speaks. Rook makes a signal with his hand, you drop low behind a fallen log, trying not to breathe too loud. There's movement ahead, a shape sleek and powerful gliding between shadows. You catch a flash of teeth, not a wolf. Bigger, stockier, a saber-toothed cat. You'd laugh at the absurdity. But your lungs have stopped working. It circles, watching, testing. This isn't a chance hunt. This is defense. The cat's too close to camp, too bold. It's been spotted before, probably. Now it's a problem. The attack is sudden. Not from the front, but from behind. Another cat, smaller, lunging from a tree with a snarl that splits the air. Chaos, screams, spears thrown. The underbrush explodes in motion. You stumble, rolling out of the way as claws rake the earth beside you. You grab your own spear, not to throw but to jab. You thrust, hit fur, bone. Something shrieks. You're thrown back, wind knocked out, mud in your eyes. Then someone tackles the cat. Rook, probably, drives a blade deep into its side. Silence. It limps away, bleeding, vanishing into the trees. The others don't chase. They regroup, breathing hard. Counting who's still standing. All of you. Barely. You look down and realise you're bleeding. Shallow scratches along your ribs. Nothing serious, but real, proof you stood your ground. That night back at camp, the story spreads, not in full sentences, in gestures, in reenactments by the fire. Laughter, grunts, gasps. And you? You're in the story again. Someone paints your side with red ash where the claws grazed you. Not as a wound, as a mark of survival. You sit there long after the fire dies, your hand still shaking, your skin still humming. You didn't run. You fought something ancient, something terrifying, and you're still here. The days blur after the saber-cat incident. Not in a traumatic, can't-remember kind of way, but in that slow, heavy rhythm that takes oversea when you're living without clocks, without phones, without the tyranny of constant updates. Time stretches here like sap dripping from a tree, viscous and unhurried. You wake with the sun and sleep when the fire dims. Hunger tells you it's mealtime. Shadows tell you it's late. Everything else, you just feel it. You're starting to recognise the seasons in miniature. Mornings now bite harder than they did when you first arrived, and frost clings to the leaves a little longer each day. It's not winter yet, not the kind that will gnash its teeth and chase you out of your shelter. But the warning signs are there. The animals are fatter, twitchier, the air smells different. Even the river has a slower, quieter voice. The tribe feels it too. Everyone's moving with more urgency. Meat is smoked in long racks near the fire pit, hides stretched and sewn with fast fingers. Dried berries and roots pounded into rough cakes and buried in pits like treasure. You help where you can, patching holes in shelters, weaving reeds into lopsided baskets, trying to keep your furs from falling apart completely. Spoiler, they are falling apart, but now you know how to fix them. Your hands, once soft and used to keyboards, are calloused and cracked. You no longer wince when they bleed, you just wrap them in strips of rabbit fur and keep working. If that's not progress, what is? And then there's the gossip. Oh yeah, turns out gossip is absolutely a Stone Age invention, and you, dear listener, are the smack in the middle of it. It starts when 2 members of the tribe, one young, all limbs and anxiety, and the other older, sharp-eyed and quiet, begin arguing. Not violently, just intensely. Low tones, long silences. Occasional glances in your direction. At first you ignore it. Then it becomes impossible, because you've somehow been cast as the main character in a drama you didn't audition for. You don't know the whole story. Maybe the older one thinks you're a threat. Maybe the younger one thinks you're interesting. All you know is that people have started watching you with different expressions now. Curiosity, amusement, suspicion. You're not just the outsider anymore. You're the subject. A walking, talking, unintentional plot twist. One afternoon, while scraping bark with a group of women, someone hands you a strip of dried root with a weird grin. You chew it, because you're still a little too trusting, and immediately your mouth goes numb. Your tongue feels like a wet sock and your jaw won't work right. Everyone around you laughs. Not cruelly, but with that welcome to the inside joke energy. You've been hazed. Congratulations. Later, someone leaves a carved figure near your shelter, a little person with exaggerated eyes and, wait, is that supposed to be you? Yeah, you're officially folklore now. You try to brush it off, but there's no denying it. The tribe has opinions, and they're airing them in the only ways they know how. Carvings, jokes, paint, and the occasional offhanded grunt that probably translates to something like, that time traveller is definitely weird, but kind of growing on me. You talk to Ruch about it, or try to. He shrugs, then grins and holds up a stick figure he's etched into a rock. It has wild hair and 2 left feet. It's clearly you. He gestures to it, then to the stars, then back to you. You raise an eyebrow. Legend? He nods, laughing. Some part of you wants to be embarrassed. Another part? Kind of flattered. You're ridiculous, yes, but now you're there ridiculous. But there's more under the surface than just jokes. In the days that follow, something else bubbles up. Tension between camps. The visitors, Jato's group, are back again. This time with more than just a few necklaces and swagger. They've brought news of another tribe farther west who have been displaced by a fire. There's competition for hunting grounds now, whispers about scarcity, worries about the coming cold. The mood shifts. Not panicked, but cautious. Fire circles grow quieter. Weapons are sharpened more often. Children are kept closer to the shelters. You overhear fragments, names of unfamiliar places, symbols drawn in the dirt, lines for rivers, triangles for mountains, circles that probably mean other people. Rook doesn't say much, but his brow stays furrowed more than usual. Then there's the fire meeting. It happens at night, unannounced, called with a single rising note hummed by the elders, like a vocal alarm bell. The entire camp gathers, from the oldest hunched grandmother to the tiniest child still chewing on their own foot. You're there too, sitting cross-legged near the edge, heart pounding, because you know this is important. One of the elders speaks first, calmly, with hands folded. Another responds, then Jato, loudly, arms waving. Someone claps in support, someone else hisses, then silence. Grandma Bones stands. She doesn't speak. She just walks to the fire, grabs a chunk of charcoal, and draws a symbol in the ash at the centre, a spiral again surrounded by dots. You've seen it before. It means unity, or memory, or both. She draws a slash through it. The crowd murmurs, then she adds something new, 2 spirals side by side connected by a line, and dots beneath them. It's a proposal, cooperation, shared land, shared resources, shared memory. But it's not guaranteed. The decision isn't hers, it belongs to the people, and it's not resolved that night. People drift away into arbitration, some nodding, others frowning. You stay by the fire, watching the symbol smudge in the breeze. The stakes are higher now. This isn't just about food or furs, it's about territory, identity, trust, how much the tribe is willing to share and how much they're willing to risk for peace. You don't sleep much that night. The sky feels heavier, the stars less playful. Still, you're part of the conversation now, even if no one's asked you to speak. The lines are being drawn, and soon you'll have to pick a side. You don't know exactly when it starts, but sometime after the fire council the drums come out. Not the loud, pulsing warbeat kind, at least not at first. These are hollow log, stretched skins, rocks tapped in rhythm. The sounds start small like a heartbeat felt through the ground. Then they grow, they echo off the trees, off the cliffs, vibrating through your chest like they're trying to wake something ancient sleeping in your ribs. It's the beginning of a ritual, at least that's your best guess. No one explains anything. They never do. You learn by being pulled into it, by watching until the watching stops and you realise you're part of it now. People begin painting themselves in rich reds and deep blacks, patterns sharp and deliberate, zigzags across chests, spirals down arms, dots trailing from jaw to collarbone. You're handed a bowl of pigment too, brown ochre this time, mixed with something that smells like crushed pine and smoke. One of the girls, barely 10 years old, fierce as a hawk, grabs your wrist and begins painting your forearm without asking. A line here, a streak there. She doesn't look at you. She's focused, like this means something sacred, and you sit still, because you're starting to understand that it does. The camp begins to empty out in groups. People move toward the southern hill, where a wide plateau overlooks the river valley. You follow the crowd as dusk melts into night, the line of painted bodies glowing in the last traces of sunlight. Torches are lit from one fire and passed hand to hand. The air smells of burning sap and dry moss. Sparks rise like frantic fireflies. When you reach the top of the hill, the view punches the breath out of your lungs. The entire world opens up before you, hills rolling like waves, forests stretching dark and endless. The silver river slithering through it all like a secret. The stars are just starting to blink awake, scattered across the sky in unfamiliar constellations. You recognise none of them, and somehow they feel more real than the ones you grew up under. Then the real sound begins. The drumming shifts. Deeper now, layered. Feet stomp. Hands clap. People begin to sway in loose rhythmic patterns. Not quite dancing, not quite stillness. Somewhere in between. Movements ripple out like wind through grass. One person twitches, another responds, a call and answer, a conversation in motion. And you freeze. You don't know what to do with your limbs. This isn't your world. Your feet are too slow, your arms too stiff. But the girl who painted you is back, tugging your hand, pulling you into the circle. You resist for a second, not out of fear, well, okay, a little fear, but out of the deep stubborn awkwardness baked into every modern person who has ever tried to dance in public. But she keeps pulling, and eventually your feet start to move, clumsy at first. You step when you shouldn't. You spin when everyone else is still. But then the rhythm catches you. Not the music, but the motion, the way everyone pulses together, the rise and fall of bodies in sync. You stop thinking, you stop caring, and you begin to move with them. There's no choreography, no Instagram-worthy moves, just raw expression. People leap, crawl, shake. Someone mimics the antlers of a deer. Another becomes a bear, growling and charging through the circle. A pair acts out a hunt, a chase, a struggle, a kill. It's part theatre, part trance. Then the fire blazes higher and something changes. A figure steps into the centre, cloaked in smoke and feathers. Their face is painted bone white with black marks across their eyes and mouth. It's the shaman. You've seen her before, quiet, always watching, always just at the edge of whatever's happening. But now she commands every gaze. She begins to speak, or chant, or sing. It's hard to tell. Her voice is low and slow, vibrating like a drum. The words don't mean anything to you, but the rhythm pulls you deeper. You sit, so does everyone else. The dance pauses. The energy turns inward. She tells a story. You can feel it even without understanding the language. It's about the sky. About animals walking in the stars, about a great flood and a single torch that survived. Her arms sweep. She draws symbols in the dirt. A snake, a fire, a hand, a beast with curved tusks. Then she walks toward the fire and throws in a handful of herbs. Blue smoke erupts, curling around her like a cloak. She turns to the crowd, eyes shining through the haze, and lifts a small bowl over her head. It's passed around. You're handed it next. The smell is wild, earthy, sharp, not exactly pleasant. You hesitate, and drink. It's bitter, with a strange sweetness that spreads through your mouth like sap. Then your chest grows warm, your arms heavy. Your vision sharpens, then blurs, then sharpens again. Someone's singing nearby, but it's not music, it's a thread. You feel yourself being pulled by it. You lie back. The stars spin, you're not dreaming, but you're not entirely awake either. Shapes form in the sky, deer leaping between constellations, great birds flying backward, a river made of fire. You see the mammoth again, its eyes glowing. You see the saber cat, you see yourself, painted, dancing, laughing. You see the girl who marked you, walking between the stars. You sit up with a gasp. The fire's dimmed. The ritual's ending. People are stirring, stretching, wiping sweat from their faces. The air is cool again, grounded. A man nearby hums softly, tracing a symbol in the dirt with his toe. Rook appears beside you, silent as always. He doesn't ask what you saw. He just nods, once, and looks to the sky. You follow his gaze. The stars are fading now, washed out by the first glow of dawn, but something lingers in your chest. An ache, not of fear or confusion, but recognition. You came from another time, but here in this circle, under this sky, something primal cracked open inside you, something that remembers. This wasn't a party, it wasn't a celebration, it was a binding. And you, strange outsider, are no longer outside. You've danced the memory of the tribe, and the tribe remembers you. You don't remember falling asleep, but you wake up in the stillness just before the sun breaks the horizon, and for a moment, you don't know who you are. You're lying in a nest of fur and woven reeds, your body covered in red dust, your skin sticky with sweat and smoke, your head feels cotton thick, your limbs sluggish. It takes a few long breaths before the pieces come back, last night's ritual, the dancing, the drink, the stars curling into animal shapes. You sit up slowly, like a wave returning to shore after a very long journey. The camp is quiet, not the usual quiet of sleep, but something heavier. Stillness wrapped in silence. A hush you've only heard one other time, back home, long ago, at a funeral. And then you know, something's happened. You follow the soundless thread through the village, past shelters dimmed and empty toward the edge of the woods. That's where you see them, a gathering of figures clustered beneath the ancient cedar tree, all wrapped in dark furs, heads bowed. You don't need words, you don't even need to get closer. You already understand someone has died. You slow your steps, unsure of your place in this. You aren't family, you aren't even from here. And part of you wants to stay back, let this be theirs, untouched. But then Rook sees you. He doesn't speak. He just lifts a hand, slow and open, and that gesture is all the invitation you need. You move into the crowd where bodies press close not for warmth but for support. The air is thick with a scent you now recognize as ritual. Smoke, herbs, pine, and something sweet. Sap or resin burning slowly in a carved stone bowl. A single woman kneels at the center, head lowered, her hands trembling over a bundle wrapped in deer hide. A child, young, maybe 6 or 7. You don't recognize the face, but you remember the laugh. It echoes in your head like the flick of a spark. Death here isn't uncommon. Life is brittle in this world, no matter how strong the people are. A single infection, a fall, a misstep near a wild animal. You've known this in theory. Now you're looking it in the face. The tribe doesn't wail. There's no screaming, no tearing of hair or beating of chests. The grief here is quieter, deeper. It's in the small movements, the way one hand clasps another, the way heads lean together in shared sorrow, the way someone weaves a few strands of grass into a braid and places it at the child's feet. You kneel too, because what else can you do? The shaman arrives. Her face is painted again, but this time in pure white, a blank canvas. Her hair is covered in moss, her hand stained blue from some plant you haven't seen before. She walks with slow, deliberate steps, and everyone makes space without being told. Even the air moves aside for her. She begins the ritual. Her voice is low, almost monotone, but it carries. She speaks to the sky, to the earth, to the fire, to the water, and to the dead. She doesn't speak about the child. She speaks to them. You understand none of the words, but all of the meaning. The shaman thanks them for their breath, their laughter, their small footprints in the soil. She tells them where to go, up or down or inward, you don't know, but the path sounds gentle, peaceful. Then she kneels and takes a bit of ash from the fire, drawing a spiral on the child's forehead. The same symbol again, memory, connection, the thread that binds. A low hum begins in the crowd, growing gradually. A pulse, a toe, a communal breath turned to sound. You join in, not because you know how, because you have to. Your throat vibrates. The sound wraps around you, cradles the silence, lifts the grief without dissolving it. Then the burial begins. They don't dig deep graves here. Not in this soil. Instead, a cairn of stones is built layer by layer, every hand adding a piece. Some are smooth, others jagged. Some have markings, scratches, paint, little carvings. You watch as a woman places a carved bone figurine into the folds of the hide. A man adds a tuft of hair tied with string. These aren't offerings. They're pieces of memory. When it's your turn, you hesitate. Then you reach into your pouch and pull out something you'd nearly forgotten, your first fire-starting flint. The one you'd fumbled with for hours that first night alone. It's worn smooth now, useless, but it means something. You place it gently at the child's side and whisper, "Take it, in case it's cold where you're going." No one hears, but somehow you think someone does. By the time the last stone is set, the sun has fully risen. It casts long gold lines across the cairn, turning every rough edge into something sacred. The crowd begins to leave, slowly touching shoulders as they pass. No words are exchanged, just presence. You linger, not out of obligation, out of reverence. This, you think, is the truest form of community, not fire or food or survival, but the quiet act of remembering someone together, of letting them go with dignity. Later, the camp returns to its rhythms, but softer. Tools are picked up with less noise. Chores are done with fewer jokes. Even the children move a little slower. Grief isn't a pause button here. It's a thread woven through everything else. That night, around the fire, a new story is told. It's short, simple, a tale of a small child who tricked a fox, climbed a tree, and sang to the stars. The ending isn't tragic. It isn't even about death. It's about joy, curiosity, the song the child left behind, and that's how they do it here. They don't bury just the body. They plant the memory. You start seeing them everywhere now. Animals etched in pigment and bone, scratched into tree bark, curled into the corners of shelters, staring out from the walls of caves with eyes that seem to follow you even when you move. They're in the way people walk, the way they mimic movements around the fire, the way a hunter flicks his wrist like a fox pouncing on prey. These animals aren't just food or threat or scenery. They're spirit, language, family. It starts with a painting. You're helping gather firewood near the cliffs when you stumble into a shallow cave you've somehow never noticed before. Low, narrow, partly hidden behind a cluster of wind-twisted trees. You duck inside, dragging your bundle of sticks, only to stop short. It's not empty. The walls are covered in pigment. Red, black ochre, and to see what looks like a horse, thin-legged, mid-gallop, its head thrown back as if it's braying. Beside it, a giant cat crouches, every muscle tensed. There's a bird too, wings outspread as if captured in mid-flap, and a human figure standing with arms raised between them all. Your breath catches. It's not just a painting. It's a scene, a story. Someone clears their throat behind you. You whipped around, startled, nearly braining yourself on the low ceiling. The shaman stands in the doorway, shadowed and still. She gestures for you to sit. You do, legs folded awkwardly on the cold stone, trying not to shiver. She lowers herself beside you and produces a bowl filled with pigment and a short frayed brush made from grass or animal hair. Without speaking, she dips the brush and begins to add to the wall. A line here, a curve there, a snake, long and winding, curling around the base of the human figure. You point, then tap your chest. Me? She doesn't answer. She just paints. Eventually she sets the bowl down and reaches into her pouch, producing a small carved figure, a human with bird wings. She presses it into your hand, nods once, then gets up and walks out, leaving you alone with the painting, the snake, and a growing sense that your place in this story is getting stranger by the day. You carry the figure with you everywhere now, not as a good luck charm exactly, but as something grounding, a tether. Every time your mind drifts back to your old life, your apartment, your favourite pizza place, the hum of traffic and the glow of streetlights, you touch the winged figure in your pocket and feel yourself snap back to here, to this, later. You're invited to another ritual, less formal this time, more communal. It takes place by the river, beneath a crescent moon that looks suspiciously like a cracked thumbnail. People gather with bundles of herbs, feathers, and smooth stones. One by one, they lay their offerings along the water's edge, then kneel to whisper something into the dark current. Rook taps your arm and hands you a small pouch made of stitched hide. Inside is a bone bead and a tuft of fur. You don't ask what it means, you just follow the others, kneeling at the water and pressing the pouch into the stream until it drifts away, tumbling and spinning before vanishing into the current. You watch it go, heart heavier than expected. That's the thing about rituals here. They're not optional. They get inside you, they do something. Afterward, people gather by a nearby tree, and one of the elders tells a story. It's about a time when animals and humans were the same, brothers, sisters. Then something happened, some betrayal or accident, and the two worlds split. Now, animals carry the memory of what humans forgot. And humans, if they listen closely, can still hear the stories in their bones. You don't know if it's literal, does not matter. It feels true. The next morning you notice the carvings again, this time on tools hidden in the handles of spears and the shafts of arrows. A bear here, a bird there, totems. You see them painted on faces before hunts, drawn in the dirt before a fire is lit. Everyone here has an animal or is chosen by one. You haven't figured out yours yet, but the figure the shaman gave you, the one with the wings, you wonder. That night, in your shelter, you stare into the fire, half asleep, and see a bird in the flames. Not a real one, just the flickering shape of one, feathers lifting and falling with the wind. You blink, and it's gone. Dream? Hallucination? Symbol? Yes, all of the above. You dream of flying, not in the superhero sense. No capes, no dramatic landings. It's a slow, gliding sensation. You soar above the valley, wings outstretched, looking down at your own footprints in the dirt, at the twisted trees, at the spiral symbols carved into rocks. You wake breathless. You go to the cave. The snake is still there. But now, next to it, the shaman has painted the winged human in full, the one from your carving. You didn't imagine it. It's you, or something like you. You trace the edge of its wing with your finger and feel something shift, not outside, but in. You belong to this story now. Not as a spectator. As a symbol, a living part of their myth. Later, someone asks about the carving in your hand. You tell them what you think it means. They nod solemnly and point to the sky. Bird, they say. Then tap your chest. You? You try not to make a big deal out of it, but it lands like a stone dropped in water. This is your totem. Not chosen by you, but given. Witnessed. It changes how people look at you. Children start drawing little birds near your shelter. A feather appears in your food pouch. You're given a new task, climbing trees to harvest certain berries no one else wants to risk. You go. You get scratched, bruised, but you do it. Because maybe they're right. Maybe you are the bird. That night you draw your own figure on the cave wall for the first time. Not a mammoth, not a weapon, not a subral, a bird, simple, just wings spread wide. Underneath it you press your hand in black ash and leave the mark there. 5 fingers, bold and smudged. This is how memory lives here. Not in books, not in photos, but in pigment and gesture and whispered stories under the stars. And now your story flies with them. The cold doesn't arrive all at once, it creeps, slowly. Like a breath on the back of your neck, so faint you think you imagined it, until it doesn't leave. One morning you wake to find your water pouch stiff with ice and a layer of frost creeping along the fur edges of your shelter. The air smells different too, crisper, metallic almost, as if the sky itself has frozen and is waiting to shatter. You pull your furs tighter and shuffle out, feet numb and clumsy, your breath ghosting in front of you. Around camp, the change is clear. Every movement has more urgency now. Meat is being dried in massive quantities, hung from racks that creak and groan under the weight of it. People move in pairs more often, even for short trips outside the camp. No one wants to be caught alone if the snow decides to fall. Fires burn longer, hotter. The children no longer run barefoot. The drums have quieted. Even the laughter has shifted. Less belly deep, more brittle around the edges. You notice something else too, the stories have changed. The light-hearted ones, the trickster tales, the animal parables, they are being replaced by darker myths. Ones about storms that steal breath, spirits trapped in the ice, gods with frost for eyes and hunger for warmth. You hear the elders speak of the long sleep, and although no one explains it directly, you understand it's more than a season. It's a test. One morning, you wake to find Rook outside your shelter, waiting with a bow in one hand and a serious look on his face. You grab your gear without question, because this, you know, is not the time to ask why. You follow him into the thinning woods where the trees have grown silent, their limbs heavy with frost, their leaves long fallen. It's not a hunt for meat this time, you're searching for something else. Winter supplies are running low, not food but materials, tree sap for torches, bark for insulation, fibres for sewing. You help strip branches, dig through frozen dirt, smash open fallen logs for insects and larvae to smoke later. Nothing goes to waste now. Everything that can be burned, eaten, used, will be. You stumble upon a nest of rodents burrowed into a tree stump. Rook doesn't hesitate. He reaches in, grabs 2, cracks their necks without blinking. It's brutal, efficient and necessary. You help carry them back. You don't flinch this time. That softness in you, the one that winced at fur and blood, is shrinking. Not gone, but transforming. Rewired for survival. Back at camp, the air has changed again. Snow, the flakes fall in silence, drifting like ash from a sky gone pale. The children cheer at first, dancing in circles, catching flakes on their tongues. But the adults move quickly, pulling hides tight, reinforcing the shelters, banking the fires higher. Snow is beautiful, but it's also the beginning of hardship, of hunger, of cold that kills sinister in the night. You spend the next few days hauling wood, patching leaks, stuffing gaps in shelters with moss and straw. At night, you sleep sandwiched between two others, the body heat the only thing standing between you and the long, slow freeze. You learn not to move too much, not to waste energy. Every step outside becomes a calculation. How far, how long, how much warmth you'll burn getting back. There's a night when the fire doesn't catch, the wood is wet, the flint is dull. The wind is relentless. You see fear in their eyes, ill-fool fear. Not panic, not screaming, just the quiet kind that crawls behind the ribs and whispers this could be the night. But Ruch keeps striking the stone, over and over, until finally, miraculously, a spark, a glow, a flame. The tribe exhales. The next morning, the shaman calls for silence, no pigments, no stories, no dancing. A man has died, an elder, one of the firekeepers. He wasn't injured, he wasn't sick, he just stopped. In the night, while everyone slept shoulder to shoulder, his breath slipped out and didn't return. You help carry him to the burial ridge, the place where stone cairns rise like broken teeth against the sky. There's no wailing, no ceremony, just stone placed carefully by calloused hands. His tools are buried with him, a small piece of meat, a bowl of ash. The tribe moves on because they have to, because death in winter isn't a tragedy, it's math. The next few days are hard, food is low, fewer animals are moving. You try hunting and catch nothing. You try fishing and the line snaps under ice. You gnaw on smoked roots, stale and bitter. You drink melted snow and sleep curled so tightly you wake with cramps, but you're still alive. One night a snowstorm hits. It comes like a wall sudden, white, obliterating. You barely make it back to camp in time. Inside your shelter you can hear it howling like some enormous beast battering the hides and bone structures, threatening to tear the entire camp away. You clutch your furs, every muscle rigid, trying not to imagine being buried alive. And then, through the wind, you hear singing. Soft at first, then louder. The tribe is singing. You crawl to the edge of the shelter and peek out. Through the swirling snow you see them, huddled close, fires ringed in rock. Voices raised not in joy but in defiance. A chant, a prayer, a reminder that they are still here. You join them. Your voices roar, off-key, barely audible. But it's there. You're there. The storm rages, but so do you. When it finally passes, days later, you emerge to find the camp still standing, buried in drifts but whole. Frost clings to every surface. Some tools are gone. One shelter collapsed, but no one is missing. Everyone survived, for now. There are more hard days ahead, that's clear, but you've seen it now, how they endure, how they honour the dead not with tears but with survival, how they bury sorrow under work, how they laugh even when their bellies ache, how they tell stories not to escape but to remember. You're different now, you walk differently, speak less, listen more. You don't complain about the cold, you don't dream of going home, because this is home now. And winter isn't the end, it's just the part where you learn who you really are. You see them just after dawn, two shadowed figures across the river, standing so still they could be mistaken for trees. But trees don't carry spears, and they don't stare back. The light is soft, pale, filtered through the last wisps of morning fog. You're crouched by the water, checking the traps you and Malu set days ago, a rabbit in one, empty snares otherwise. You're about to call it a modest win when your instincts spark, some ancient flicker at the back of your brain. You look up and there they are. Not animals, not your tribe, Neanderthals. You know before you know, if that makes sense. It's in the shape of them, thick-limbed, wide-chested, with faces flatter, heavier, like sculptures carved too deep. They don't move, neither do you. The moment stretches. You feel every beat of your heart in your fingertips, as if your pulse has spilled out into the air between you. One of them steps forward, slowly. They're older, maybe, with greying hair tied back with something like sinew. Their eyes are deep set and dark, scanning you the way a hawk watches a mouse, curious, not hostile, but not friendly either. You stand, slowly, you raise your hands, open palms, universal symbol for I'm not here to mess with you. You consider stepping across the river, but stop. Too forward, too risky. Instead, you crouch and reach into your pouch, pull out one of the fish you caught earlier, and lay it gently on the ground beside your feet. Then you back up 2 paces. The Neanderthal tilts their head. A moment later, the second figure, a younger one, probably male, shorter but built like a walking boulder, crosses the river. Not with hesitation, with purpose. He snatches the fish, sniffed it once, and retreats. Not a word is spoken, not a single sound. Then both figures melt back into the forest, quiet as ghosts. You stand there for a long time, fishless and breathless. When you return to camp, you tell Ruch. He doesn't react the way you expect. There's no alarm, no sudden call to arms. He just listens, then nods. He knew, or suspected. The signs had been there. Footprints too wide for the tribe's children. A broken spear tip found near the high ridge. Meat gone missing from a cache that had been carefully hidden. The Neanderthals weren't strangers. Not entirely, just distant cousins no one liked to talk about. The tribe gathers that night, quietly around the fire. No drums, no dance, just soft voices and watchful eyes. Someone draws a shape in the dirt. A circle, divided down the centre. One side yours, the other theirs. No bridges between them, not yet. The shaman draws 2 dots inside the circle, then a line connecting them. No one speaks, but the meaning is clear. Contact has happened. Now comes the question of what next. The following day, a scouting party is assembled. Not to chase, not to threaten, just to observe. You ask to go, they hesitate. But they let you. You travel light, furs, water, dried roots, a knife, and 1 painted feather tied to your wrist. Your bird totem. You've come to think of it as a quiet passport. Not a weapon, not a tool, just a symbol that says you're more than just a visitor now. The forest beyond the camp feels older, quieter. The trees closer together. The air still, heavy, as if even the wind doesn't want to draw attention to itself. You and the others move in silence, tracking faint footprints, noting broken branches, the bones of old fires. You find a spot, an abandoned camp, maybe. Shelters made of branches stacked low to the ground, stones still warm from the sun, a few crude tools. Carvings in a tree trunk, lines and shapes you don't understand, but that feel like words whispered in a dialect you don't speak. You leave something behind. Not food this time. A carving of your own, a simple bird etched into the bark, wings outstretched. Not a message, a signature, a hello. You retreat. A few nights later you see the signal. Smoke, not from your fires, not from anywhere near the tribe, just a faint thread of it curling above the ridge, visible only at dusk. Someone is calling. Rook, the shaman, and 3 others go with you. You walk for hours, not rushing. This is not a chase, it's a meeting or a test. When you crest the ridge, they're waiting. 6 of them, broad-shouldered, thick-skinned, wrapped in furs heavier than your entire wardrobe. One has red pigments smeared across his brow. Another wears a necklace of carved teeth. Wolf or bear, maybe. They watch you approach with the same unreadable calm you remember from the river. You're the first to step forward. Again, you raise your hands. Again, you offer something. This time, a piece of smoked meat wrapped in hide. You place it between the groups and back away. One of them steps forward. An elder, maybe. They kneel, take the meat, eat it slowly. Then they do something unexpected. They smile. It's not a full grin, more a twitch of the lips, but it's unmistakable human. Then they draw in the dirt. 2 figures, side by side, not touching, but not at war. You do the same. The others watch. One of them mimics a bird, another draws a mammoth. You realise this isn't a negotiation. It's language, shared symbols, a way to communicate without words. You stay there for what feels like hours, and when you leave, nothing is decided. No alliance is made, no promises spoken. But something has shifted. A door has opened. When you return, the tribe listens to your account without speaking. Then Grandma Bones smacks her stick against the ground, points to the fire and makes a sound that means something like, "We will see." You lie awake that night under the stars, staring at the sky that now feels impossibly big and impossibly close. You think about them, those heavy-framed cousins in the forest, the ones with language in their eyes, the ones who see you not as prey, not as threat, but as question. The world is wider than you imagined, more layered, more complicated. You're not the only outsider anymore, and soon someone will have to decide whether memory is enough to build peace, or if the past will always draw a line in the dirt, You smell it before you see it, meat, hot and fatty, dripping over open flame, spitting into the fire with loud, hissing pops that make your mouth water, despite the fact you haven't even opened your eyes yet. You blink awake, nose first, and for once, you're not greeted by the usual musty fur and sore joints and frostbitten air. No, today the camp smells like victory. You sit up slowly, joints creaking, muscles complaining, and catch sight of the cause, a mammoth, or what's left of one. Enormous slabs of meat hang from racks, smoke curling upward in thick, fragrant ribbons. Bones thicker than your thigh are stacked in a neat pile, and a group of children are already turning one into a game, balancing on it like it's a seesaw while the adults pretend not to notice. Rook spots you and jerks his chin toward the fire. You walk over, weaving between bundles of drying hides and baskets of sinew. You pass someone stirring a pot with a stick that used to be a femur. Someone else is scraping a hunk of meat with the edge of a shell. The energy in the camp is brighter, looser. People move with a kind of quiet pride, the kind that comes after pulling something enormous out of the earth, with bare hands and grit and raw human stubbornness. You don't know the details of the hunt. You weren't part of this one. But the story's already being told, in gestures, in mimed reenactments, in grins and exaggerated snarls. From what you gather, it took 2 days, 3 spears through the shoulder, and one very close call involving a cliffside and a hunter clinging to a branch with his teeth. But the mammoth fell. That's all that matters. That, and what comes next. Because a successful mammoth hunt doesn't just mean food, it means a feast, and not just the eat until you're slightly less miserable kind of feast you've gotten used to. This is something bigger. This is celebration, ritual, myth-making, the kind of event that becomes a marker in the tribe's story. There was before the feast, and there was after. Preparations begin fast. Fire pits are stoked until they glow white hot. A massive flat stone is heated and then dragged into the centre of the camp to serve as a communal cooking surface. Hides are laid out like rugs. Decorations go up. Feathers, bones, dyed cords strung from branch to branch like ancient tinsel. Someone even paints the face of the stoner idol near the edge of camp, adding bright red swirls to its weathered expression. It's festive, it's alive, and it feels strangely familiar, like a family gathering without the awkward uncles and passive-aggressive casserole. You're put to work, of course, everyone is. You help grind roots into powder, chop wild onions with your not-quite-straight flint blade, and carry buckets of snow to melt down for drinking water. You're handed a bundle of herbs and told, through a series of aggressive gestures, not to eat them raw unless you want to hallucinate your own funeral. Good to know. By late afternoon, the camp smells like roasted meat, spiced smoke, and that subtle background tang of human sweat and accomplishment. People begin to gather around the central fire, faces painted with ash and pigment, wearing their best furs, the least stained, the most patched, the ones that look like someone actually cared while stitching them together. Someone drums, not the sharp rhythm of warning, not the pulsing beat of a hunt, but something slower. Lush. A rhythm that says we're alive, we did it. We endure. You feel it in your chest. Then the food is brought out. Massive trays, wooden slabs and hide-wrap baskets are passed around. Everyone takes a little of everything. You're handed a chunk of roasted mammoth haunch that's bigger than your hand and so tender it nearly falls apart just sitting in your palm. You bite in and groan, actually groan, like some prehistoric food critic. It's smoky, rich, salty from the herbs rubbed into the fat. It tastes like warmth, like memory, like survival wrapped in flavour. And then the stories begin. Not whispered around the fire this time, but shouted, performed, acted out. The hunters retell the mammoth's death with comedic flair. Someone plays the mammoth, stomping around on all fours, fake tusks tied to their forehead. Others play the hunters, throwing imaginary spears, getting fake trampled, moaning dramatically. The children howl with laughter. The elders nod approvingly. You realise that this is more than entertainment. It's history. Oral tradition in its rawest, funniest, most immediate form. Then comes the dancing. It starts slow, like everything else. Just a few people swaying near the fire, then more join, stamping feet, raising arms. A circle forms, hands reach for hands. You're pulled in without warning by Malu, who grins like he's about to get you into trouble, which, to be fair, is probably true. You try to keep up, you trip twice, nobody cares, you lose track of time, hours pass, and you forget the cold, the hunger, even the ache in your bones. The firelight flickers against painted faces. People sing. Not words, but sounds, tones, emotion. You join in off-key and too loud. Still no one stops you. You're part of it now. Not a guest, not a novelty, just another body in the circle. At some point, a pipe is passed around, something burning inside it that smells sweet and strange. You take one cautious puff and instantly regret it. The stars seem to bend, the fire sways, Malu bursts into laughter at your face. You cough until you see God, or at least a raccoon-shaped spirit doing a backflip. Hard to say. You lie on your back in the snow watching sparks rise into the night like glowing insects. Someone flops down beside you. You don't even look to see who. It doesn't matter. You're warm, full, floating, and then, softly, someone starts a new story. It's about a bird, a traveller, one who fell from the sky but learned to walk with the tribe. It's not subtle. You roll your eyes, but also your chest tightens, because they're telling your story, or at least the version they've made of you. It's not completely accurate. In this version, you apparently saved the children from a river spirit and killed a saber cat with your bare hands, but still, your name or something close to it is said with pride. You close your eyes, the story continues. The fire crackles. The mammoth is long gone, now just a full belly and warm memory. But tonight, in this feast, in this fire, in these voices singing your name to the stars, you understand something deep. You are no longer passing through history, you're becoming it. The first time you notice the glances, they're brief, quick flickers of eyes, like the way people glance at thunderclouds on the horizon wondering if they'll bring rain or just noise. It starts the morning after the feast, when you're still wobbling from too much roasted mammoth and that mystery pipe you now firmly regret. You step out into the daylight, squinting at the brightness, and someone with painted dots under her eyes watches you a little longer than usual. You catch her looking again an hour later while you're hauling water. Not a stare, just a look. Half amused, half curious. You offer a polite nod. She tilts her head, says something soft, and walks away. And that's when it begins. The thing no one talks about. Stone Age romance. Let's be clear. This isn't a rom-com. There are no awkward coffee shop meet-cutes or slow-motion glances over bookshelves. But there is something here in the way people interact. Subtle gestures. Sidelong grins, shared food, the occasional touch that lingers a little too long to be innocent. And suddenly you're in the middle of it. You don't know the rules. No one hands you a pamphlet titled How to Flirt When You're Wearing 5 Layers of Animal Hide. You have to learn by watching. It's all body language, tone, the way someone offers you a seat beside them by the fire, or how they carve something quietly and then leave it outside your shelter without a word. The girl from the water, her name is Nia. You find out later, she has a laugh like rain hitting a drum and an uncanny ability to mimic bird calls. She teaches the children how to whistle with reeds. You see her everywhere now, not because she suddenly appeared, but because you're noticing. She leaves a bone carving near your pile of tools. It's small, shaped like a bird. You assume it's your bird, so the one the tribe has quietly assigned to you. You pick it up, unsure what the next move is. Return a carving, bring food, or just nod and say thanks in whatever half syllables you can manage. You decide on berries, the safe choice. You gather them carefully, wrap them in a leaf bundle, and leave them where she likes to sit near the fire. You think that's subtle. It is not subtle. That night you return to your shelter to find another carving. This one is unmistakably a person. Broad shoulders, arms outstretched, and what appears to be a bird's, or wings, or maybe extremely unfortunate hair. The resemblance is close enough that you burst out laughing. The tribe doesn't tease you outright, but they know. You hear the chuckles behind your back. Someone whistles when you pass. A few children start making exaggerated kissing noises, proof that some behaviour really is timeless. But no one disapproves. If anything, this is part of the rhythm of life here. Connections forming quietly, without ceremony. There are no marriage contracts, no ceremonies, no one asking what are we over a flickering fire. Relationships evolve as needed. Sometimes they last a season, sometimes longer, sometimes not at all. And everyone seems okay with that. You begin to spend more time near Naya, not hovering, but adjacent. You help her carry firewood. She helps you fix the sad excuse for a sling you've been trying to make for weeks. She laughs when you drop a spear. You pretend to be offended. You share a roasted root and nod along when she tells you a story you barely understand, but the way she tells it, with hands and faces and sudden jumps in pitch, You don't need translation. One evening you walk with her along the edge of the river, just the two of you. You say nothing at first, neither does she, but the silence is comfortable. Her hand brushes yours once, you leave yours there. You sit together under a tree. She pulls something from her pouch, a stone, smooth and flat, with a hole worn through the centre. She ties it onto a cord and loops it around your wrist. It's not a gift, not exactly. It's more like a statement. This matters now. You sleep better that night. The next few days feel different, not dramatically, but in the way that everything feels just slightly less cold. You have someone to catch eyes with across the fire, someone who shares your burden without being asked, someone who paints a line of red across your cheek before a hunt and doesn't explain why. You don't need to know, and then one night the shaman calls for a circle. Not a funeral, not a feast, something quieter, more intimate. You're invited, so is Nia. There are 6 of you total sitting in a loose circle, bundled against the wind. A small bowl of crushed herbs is passed around. The shaman begins to speak, her voice low, rhythmic, not a chant, not quite, more like a song that never finds its melody. She talks about connection, not love, not romance, bond, the thread between people, not just between man and woman, but between friends, between siblings, between hunters who trust each other in the dark. She talks about how, in the beginning there was one breath shared by all, and when the breath broke into many pieces, when it became people, animals, sky and soil, it didn't vanish, it just stretched, thinned, became harder to feel. You feel it now, sitting beside Nia. Not love, not exactly, but presence, attention. A line that runs from your chest to hers, invisible but real enough to feel in the cold. When the ceremony ends, the shaman dips her finger in ash and marks the backs of each person's hands. Just a dot. Small, faint. You keep yours there for days, and no one questions it. Because here, affection isn't something to explain, it's something to carry. Later, you lie beside Nia in your shelter. She's already asleep, her breath slow and steady. You listen to the wind. You think about the people you used to know. How affection there was often wrapped in confusion or fear or too many words. Here it's quiet, straightforward, not simple but honest. You reach for the stone she gave you, still tied to your wrist. Turn it in your fingers, feel its cool, familiar weight, and realize without panic, without hesitation, that you care. You want her to be warm, you want her to be safe, and maybe that's enough. You close your eyes, and for the first time since waking up in this world, you sleep without dreaming of the one you left behind. You wake to the sound of whispering, not the gentle kind that comes with gossip or morning greetings, but the sharper kind, hushed and fast, like fire trying to stay hidden. It's still early. The sun hasn't fully broken past the trees, but the camp is already moving. You push aside your hide and crawl out into the cool grey light. Something's off. People are clustered around the shaman's shelter, heads low, eyes wide. You catch Rook's gaze across the fire pit, and he nods once, slow and grim. It's the shaman. She's sick. You see her lying inside her den, barely more than a nest of feathers and furs and soot-stained bones. Her eyes flutter open, then shut again. She's sweating, breathing in short, dry gasps, her chest rising just enough to prove she's still here. Her skin looks like stone dust, grey, mottled, thin in places where it used to be creased and strong. A bowl of dried herbs sits untouched at her side. No one speaks, not aloud. The silence is thick with respect, fear, and the quiet dread that comes when the person who knows all the stories begins to vanish from them. You're not sure what to do, so you sit nearby, hands in your lap. Nea joins you, her hand resting lightly on your shoulder. You feel the weight of it, warm and grounding. Someone hands you a bowl of water. You pass it to the woman crouched at the shaman's side. Her apprentice, maybe. You don't know her well. She's younger, with streaks of red dye across her cheeks and dark hair, tied in a knot of bone and sinew. Her hands are steady, but her eyes dart around like a cornered deer. She wasn't expecting this so soon. No one was. As the day goes on, the shaman worsens. She stops moving entirely. Her breathing becomes quieter than wind, and still, no one leaves. People bring food and then forget to eat it. They burn herbs in small bundles. Lavender, cedar, some strange black leaf that smells like rain on warm rocks. The smoke curls around her like a blanket. You ask, finally, What will happen if she dies? The apprentice answers you in broken words and pointed fingers. There will be no replacement. Not yet. Not unless the signs say so. She hasn't passed the path yet. Hasn't chosen a successor. The shaman must leave something behind. Knowledge, vision, a symbol before she goes. Otherwise the tribe is without guidance, without protection. You feel that weight settle on everyone. Without her, they won't just lose a healer. They'll lose the link. She's the one who knows the patterns in the stars, the plants that stop blood, the words that call back dreams. She's the voice between people and sky. Without her, you're just bodies moving through frost and forest. As the second night falls, the apprentice begins her vigil. She paints her arms in white ash and wraps her eyes with a strip of dyed cloth. She doesn't sleep. She hums something low, throaty, almost insect-like. You ask what it means. It calls the ancestors, she says. The next day the shaman wakes, but not fully. She begins to murmur, words you don't understand, but which draw the others closer. She reaches toward the apprentice, fingers brushing her forehead. Then she gestures vaguely, toward the fire, toward the cave, toward the sky. The apprentice gasps and scrambles to her feet. She grabs you by the arm. Not Ruch, not one of the hunters, you. She pulls you toward the painting cave. At first, you think she's lost it. But she's focused, determined. Inside the cave, she points at the wall where your bird was painted. Beside it, new symbols are appearing. Faint, unfinished. Shapes you didn't draw. A spiral inside a circle. A handprint. A cracked line down the middle of the stone. The apprentice starts mimicking the motions, drawing the spiral in the air, patting her chest. Then yours. She gives, she says in broken breath, to you. You blink. No, no. You try to say, not me. But she insists, over and over. She give, you carry. It doesn't feel like a compliment. It feels like a burden. You return to the shaman's den, where she's fading quickly now. Her lips move, eyes half-lidded, staring not at you but through you. You kneel beside her. You want to say something comforting, something meaningful, but all you can think to do is take her hand. It's cold, she closes her eyes. You don't know when she stops breathing. There's no moment, no gasp. No final exhale like in the movies. Just stillness. One moment she's here, the next she's not. The apprentice doesn't cry. Neither does anyone else. Instead, that she rises and begins the burial chant. Everyone joins, even you. They carry the body on a woven platform up to the high ridge. The same place where the child was buried, where the elder disappeared into stone and memory. You help pile the rocks. You place a feather. Nia places a carved shell. The apprentice places a bowl of crushed pigment. All of it symbolic, none of it explained. You don't ask, because you've stopped needing answers. Not for this. That night, the fire burns differently. The apprentice paints her own arms in spirals and dots. She doesn't sit in the shaman's place, but she sits nearby, watching, listening. Not replacing, not yet, but preparing. You sit by the flames, hands on your knees, the weight of the day still crawling along your spine. Then someone hands you the bowl. The one with the herbs. You blink. No, you say, shaking your head. They insist. You take a shallow sip, bitter and sharp, tasting of bark and stone and something you can't name. Your head swims, you close your eyes, and you see, not visions exactly, but impressions, flashes, the bird, the river, the fire, the cave, a spiral and a face your own, looking back at you with white-painted eyes. You gasp awake. The fire has gone quiet. The camp is still. You sit for a long time, staring at the smoke curling upward into the sky where the stars begin to spark back to life. You are not the shaman, but maybe you carry something now. Not power, not wisdom, but memory. And sometimes that's what keeps a people alive. You wake with ash on your face and no idea how it got there. The fire is nothing but glowing bones. Crumbling under its own heat, and outside your shelter the frost hasn't melted yet. Your body aches like you ran for days, like you danced or like you wept. But your memory is patchy. Just flickers. The bird totem, the circle, the shaman's last breath. The bitter drink on your tongue, and the weight of 1,000 years crawling into your chest. You feel it before you understand it. that off-kilter sense like your brain has been turned half a click to the left. The trees look taller today, the wind sounds like it's speaking in a language you almost recognise. Everything feels realer, brighter and darker at once. You're not dreaming, but you're not entirely not dreaming either. And that's when it hits you. You're in it. A full-blown identity crisis, Stone Age edition. You're no longer sure where the you from your own time ends and where this new version begins. You can still name brands, still recite snippets of songs, still remember your old apartment, barely. But it's like looking at a painting of your life through a smeared window. Faded. Distant. You haven't thought about your phone in days. You realise this while chewing on a piece of smoked marrow bone, fingers sticky with fat watching a hawk circle overhead. You used to scroll while eating. You used to watch videos of people making bread you'd never bake. Now you measure time by the sun's mood and whether the wolves are nearby. You speak less too. Words feel bulky now, unnecessary. You point, grunt, mimic, gesture. You dream in colours and patterns instead of language. And when Nia tells you a story in her native tongue, you understand the gist of it, not because you know the words, but because her face tells you enough. Your brain has started to rewire. You think in rhythm and movement. You're becoming what you never imagined, part of this world. But that shift brings with it a strange weight. You're no longer just a visitor. And with that comes expectation. You're being looked to. Not for leadership, no, not that, but for something strange. People glance at you when things go quiet. They wait for your reaction. The apprentice sits closer to you now, almost deferential. Even Ruch, who used to elbow you in the ribs every time you dropped a tool, now watches you like someone reading the sky for omens. You don't want this attention. You didn't ask for it. You're a misplaced modern-day human, not a spiritual lightning rod. But try explaining that when your dreams keep dripping with strange symbols, when you wake up whispering words that aren't yours, when you start noticing patterns in everything, sticks, bones, bird calls, that feel like they mean something. You worry you're losing your grip, that this is what the mushrooms did, or maybe that root tea you took 3 nights ago, or maybe you've just finally cracked. But then someone says a word you've never heard before, and somehow you understand it. And then someone asks for advice, on something real, like where to hunt, or which route to use for a cut, and you know the answer. That's when it hits you. You're not going crazy. You're changing. You've absorbed so much of this world that it's not just adaptation anymore, it's transformation. You've spent months watching, helping, mimicking, failing, trying again. And now, when someone asks you how to make a fire burn longer, or how to coax a snare out of the brittle underbrush, you don't have to guess. You know. The problem is, you don't know how you know. That's what gets under your skin. This creeping suspicion that maybe, just maybe, something got past to you the night the shaman died. Not in some flashy magical way, just absorbed, like smoke into cloth. That night you sit alone by the cave wall where your bird totem is painted. You add something new, a handprint in red. Not yours, hers, the shaman's copied from memory. Next to it you draw the spiral, and beneath that your own handprint, smaller, darker, overlapping hers just slightly. You don't cry, you just feel like you're sinking into something vast and slow-moving. Something older than language, older than fear. Later. The apprentice finds you there and sits down beside you. She says nothing for a long time. Then she opens her hand and shows you a piece of broken antler, carved roughly with what looks like a bird in flight. She places it in your palm. She dreamed of you, she says slowly, in her halting words. Before you, before sky broke. She said, one would come from the aftertime. You blink. She say, the bones would know. You don't know what that means, not really, but it sends a chill through your spine. You ask her if she thinks the shaman made a mistake. She just shrugs. Not mistake, just time. You sit there together, in the dim light, as a fire flickers at the mouth of the cave. You feel the weight of the carved bone in your hand. It's not heavy, not physically, but it presses on something deep in you, a place where memory and identity twist together. You're no longer a stranger in this world, but you're no longer entirely yourself either. And that raises a question you haven't dared ask before. If given the choice, if the sky cracked open tomorrow and pulled you home, would you go? The thought lingers long after you crawl back into your shelter, long after Nia curls up beside you, long after the wind whistles through the trees like a song you almost recognise. Would you leave this place? Or has it already claimed too much of you? You fall asleep with that question in your chest and dream of spirals made of smoke. The sky is angry again, not just in the way it howls at night or throws icy wind down the valley like it's trying to erase the camp. It's worse now. The air smells different. Sharp, like wet stone and broken pine. The animals are quiet. Even the birds have disappeared. You feel it before it happens, the way the older ones do. The tightness in your gut, the ache in the joints of the hunters, the way Nea presses her hand to her belly and mutters something under her breath that you don't ask her to translate. Something's coming. The signs arrive like they always do, but faster, more desperate this time. Rook finds half the traps broken or torn away like some furious hand swept through them. Water doesn't flow like it should. It collects in strange places. You find fish dead in the shallows, glassy-eyed and limp. A sinkhole appears overnight near the ridge where you buried the shaman. One of the children falls into it up to their waist before being yanked out screaming. By the time the rain begins, the camp already knows they'll have to move, and fast. You've heard stories of this, seasonal movement, migration. Not everyone here stays in one place forever. The tribe has winter shelters deep in the cliffs, warmer and safer than this windswept valley. But those are usually reached slowly, with ceremony, with careful planning. Not like this, not with packs half made and meat still drying and half the tribe hacking from chest colds that arrived on the same wind as the bird's silence. You're thrown into the chaos, gathering, packing, stripping down shelters. You help roll hides, stuff roots and herbs into bags made of bark and sinew, tie bundles with deer gut that stretches and snaps. The mammoth bones are left behind, too heavy to carry. They're repurposed into a marker, standing tall and strange in the centre of the soon-to-be-abandoned camp. A warning or a memory, maybe both. Nea moves quickly, but you catch her looking back often. She doesn't say it, but you know this was her mother's home, the fire pit where she learned to cook, the slope where she used to sleep curled next to the old stone figure now half buried in ice. Leaving this place isn't just moving, it's grieving. The march begins before dawn. You follow the river at first, packs dragging, children bundled up like little lumps of fur, the elderly strapped onto sleds of bent wood and hide. The ground is slick. Mud swallows your feet to the ankle. You slip once, twice. You keep going, everyone does. There's no time to stop, no time to look back. The cold is worse in the open. The wind doesn't whisper, it shouts. It tears at your face, under your fingers, your thumbs. You have to draw a cloth around your mouth just to keep breathing. You watch frost creep along Nea's lashes, glittering like glass. And still, she doesn't complain. No one does. On the second day, someone collapses. It's a boy, young, not yet old enough to hunt, but strong enough to carry half a pack. He drops mid-step. No cry, no stumble, just down like a tree chopped at the base. His father screams. People stop. You crouch beside him. He's burning. Skin flushed, breath fast, pupils wide and glassy. Fever. You all know what that means. There's a brief argument. Stay and rest or push on. If you stop, more will fall. If you push, he might not survive. The decision isn't made by the elder or the apprentice this time. It's the boy's mother who speaks. A single word, sharp and final. Go! You watch them wrap him tighter, carry him between them. You see the shape of his small body vanish under the hides. And you keep walking. That night the wind breaks. It's not much, but it's enough. The camp is made fast, rough, just for rest. Fires are built shallow and wide to keep low in the wind. You huddle together, sharing body heat, chewing on frozen root that tastes like leather and frost. Nea curls up beside you. Her hand finds yours under the fur. You don't speak. There's nothing to say. The storm says it all. You dream again. This time not of symbols or birds or spirals, but of the river, the way it once flowed, clear and smooth. And in the dream, it splits. Two paths, one shallow and fast, leading toward light. The other deep, dark, still, like a mouth swallowing itself. You wake before you choose. Maybe that's the point. On the fifth day, the cliffs appear. They rise like stone teeth out of the earth, jagged and enormous, streaked with snow and shadow. They are older than your tribe, older than the river. They are refuge. You feel it in your bones before anyone confirms it. You hear the cheers, the sighs, the audible drop in tension. And then Nea pulls you aside. She says nothing, at first. just presses something into your palm. It's your old bird carving, the first one, worn smooth now. She must have carried it this whole time. She points to the cliffs, then to you, then to the sky. You understand, we made it, not just to shelter, to survival, but to something deeper. Inside the cliffs, the world changes. It's warmer somehow, not tropical, but shielded. You feel it in the air. Fires light faster, smoke rises straighter. The tribe begins to settle, slowly. Rebuilding, breathing. The boy, he makes it, barely, but he does. You help build the new fire pit. It's placed under a natural arch where light filters through a crack in the stone and paints the floor gold in the morning. Someone carves a spiral into the wall. Another adds your bird. You catch yourself smiling. Not with your mouth, with your life. You're exhausted, starving, frostbitten. But also home, because this isn't just a migration. It's a turning, a page in the story. One where you didn't just survive, you carried the memory forward. And for the first time you realise, maybe you didn't just fall into this world. Maybe you were meant to. You wake up to stillness. Not the quiet of fear or frost, but something gentler, an absence of struggle. The storm has passed, the cliffs are calm, the air smells of stone and smoke and something faintly green. Moss, maybe, or the memory of spring. You stretch, blinking in the dim light, and realise for the first time in a long while that you're not bracing for anything. Not wind, not cold, not hunger, just today. The camp is quieter now, but in a different way. Not hushed from grief or exhaustion, but softened, like a sigh after a long-held breath. Fires burn lower, but longer. Children play again, chasing each other in little packs, wearing pelts tied like cloaks. Nia laughs more. Her hair smells of pine resin. You wake beside her most mornings now and no one bats an eye. This is just how things are. You've learned to move like them, speak like them, dream like them. The clumsiness you once carried, tripping over roots, fumbling with tools, misreading every facial twitch, has faded. Your hands know how to strip bark without tearing it. Your ears can pick out the cry of a hunting cat from the wind. You're not one of the best hunters, but you're steady, capable, trusted, and yet something inside you knows it's coming. You can't explain it. No voice whispers it. No sign declares it. But the feeling blooms in your gut like a fire you didn't start. A shift, a pull. Maybe it's in the way the air trembles, just barely, when you stand on the ridge. Or the dreams. They've returned, more vivid than ever. Spirals in the sky. The river splitting again. The cave where your handprint overlaps the shaman's. And always something watching. Not threatening, not angry, just waiting. That evening you walk alone to the cave where the tribe paints their stories. Your bird is still there, wings outstretched. You add one final mark, a trail of dots leading upward toward the top of the cave wall, where no one ever paints. A path, a direction. You press your hand over your own print and close your eyes. The world feels thin again. The cliffs are safe now. That part of the story is over. The children sleep with full bellies. The tribe is strong. The apprentice is shaman in all but title. Rook leads without needing to say much. Nia tends the fire with her quiet grace. You're not needed. Not like before. And maybe that's why it happens now. That night, the stars ripple. It's not something you see with your eyes, not exactly. It's deeper. You wake with your heart hammering and the wind whispering a tune you know, even if you've never heard it. A hum, low and ancient, threading through the cracks in the cliff walls. You step outside, barefoot in the frost, and see the light. Faint, pale blue, a shimmer where the air bends, just at the edge of the forest. It doesn't feel of this world, because it's not. You don't tell anyone. You just walk. Nia watches you go. She doesn't stop you. She doesn't ask. She just meets your eyes and nods once. A silent goodbye. Your steps are quiet, confident. You don't rush. You don't hesitate. Because deep down you understand the story brought you here, and now it's letting you go. The shimmer pulses. You step into it. It's not dramatic, no flash, no thunder, just warmth and light and the sensation of becoming something again, something else. You open your eyes. Fluorescent lights above you. A blanket, beeping, the sound of wheels on tile. You're in a hospital, or something like it. Someone notices you're awake. Shouts, people rush in, they ask you questions you can't answer. Your throat is dry, your mind cluttered with spirals and feathers and fire. They say you were found in the woods days ago, no ID, No phone, just a pouch of stones and a carving of a bird, and time passes. They tell you it's 2025. But you don't feel like you've come back. You feel like you're dreaming in reverse. It takes weeks before you can sleep through the night. Months before you can touch a flame without feeling homesick. The world feels louder now, harder, too bright, too fast. You walk with a limp you didn't have before, and you flinch when people touch your shoulder without warning, but you never forget. You keep the bird carving in your pocket, and sometimes, late at night, you draw spirals on your wall, not to remember, but to honour. You don't know why it happened, or how, only that it did, and that somewhere, in a cave at the base of a frozen cliff, your handprint is still there, next to a bird with wings outstretched, waiting for someone else to find it. Maybe someday someone will, and the story will begin again, or maybe it already has. You're back in your own bed now, though it barely feels like yours. The mattress is too soft, the silence too sterile, the night too empty without the low hum of wind through trees, or the distant crackle of fire holding off the dark. You lie awake most nights, your eyes fixed on the ceiling, fingers tracing old shapes onto the sheets. Spirals, birds, lines leading nowhere. You tell yourself it was a dream. You try to believe that, but deep down you know better. The city buzzes around you now, cars' sirens, screens glowing through windows like cold little suns. Everyone's busy, always looking down at something, scrolling, tapping, swiping. You walk through it like a ghost with dirt still under your nails. You can't even hear your own footsteps over the noise, and it makes you ache for the days when you could hear the crunch of every step through snow, every breath like a word etched in frost. You keep the totems tucked away in a drawer. The carved bird, the smoothed stone with the hole worn through it, a thread of sinew still knotted to one end. You take them out sometimes, hold them in your palm just to feel their weight, just to remember. Occasionally you still wake up before sunrise and forget where you are. You expect the smoke, the smell of hides, the chorus of morning grunts and muttered greetings in a language you only half understood but still miss. You roll over expecting Nia to be there, curled beside you, hair fanned out like a nest of raven feathers. She never is. And the ache that follows isn't sharp, it's patient, deep, like winter in your bones. You try to fit back into this world, and mostly you do. You say the right things, wear the right clothes, show up on time, smile, but every once in a while someone catches the way you stare too long at a flickering candle, or the way your fingers absently braid a napkin into a pattern that looks like the ones you used to weave from grass, and they ask where you went, what happened out there in the woods. You always say the same thing, I got lost. But you're not sure that's true. Maybe you got found. Maybe you belong there more than you ever did here. And even now, as the days pass and the memories fade just enough to feel unreal, something inside you holds on. The part of you that still listens for birdsong before speaking. The part of you that can smell snow before it falls. The part of you that doesn't need a map anymore, because the path forward isn't drawn in roads or signs. It's carved in bone, in fear, in shared stories whispered under stars. Maybe you never really left. Not all of you. Because once you've stepped into the oldest story, once you've heard the fire sing your name and seen your handprint side by side with the ones who came long before, the world never feels quite the same again. And if one night the air grows still and the stars shimmer just right, maybe you'll find your way back. After all, the story never ends, it just waits.